I said I want to introduce to you. One of them is not a stranger to you, but I wanted to introduce them to you and give them an opportunity to have a few words to say to you about what they're doing, the programs that they're involved in. Since our last board meeting, I think it was since our last board meeting, we've been successful in getting a program initiated in Pascagoula in connection with the Litton Industries in an effort to help stabilize the workforce down there, which involves recruiting blacks for apprenticeship programs and what have you, and in other specialized fields. And after several months of running up and down the highway, and I made a trip to Pascagoula practically every week there for God knows how long, in connection with all those problems they've got. We finally got 2 programs in. We got, well, it's actually one program, but they're funded from 2 different sources. We got the A. Philip Randolph Outreach Program in. Bob Thomas is in charge of it now. He's the black guy that ought to be here. A few minutes, he must have went out to make a telephone call. And we've got Brother Turner, who's with us here today, who is the HRDI man. For the benefit of those of you that don't understand what HRDI is, that's the Human Resource and Development Institute set up by the FL-CIO, which in effect is a labor-funded program to assist in various and sundry manpower training programs initiated and funded by the federal government. In an attempt to get a handle on that situation down there was my thinking that in addition to providing certain needed services, that if we could get these 2 programs in, it would do a couple of things. In addition to help people solve problems whereby they'd stay in Pascagoula, it also give us an opportunity to make union members out of those people in the due process. So after several weeks of negotiations and months, as a matter of fact, we finally got the company to go along with us on the program, and we were able to get a couple of 3 guys on board. And Brother C.B. Turner out of the machinist local down there was hired and put on the payroll of the HRDI program. He's here with us, and he will be a delegate to this convention, a delegate from the machinist local union. And since Bob Thomas is not here right now, C.B., I think I'd like to call on you and let you give him a brief resume and a report on your activities and the situation as you see it. This is Brother Turner over here for the benefit of those that hadn't met him yet.
Thank you, Bob. I'm Vice President of Local 1133 in Pascagoula. I'm a delegate to State Council Machinist, and yesterday I was placed in the position of President of State Council Machinist. We had a banquet last night. We had Brother Ramsey and Brother Knight with us, and we enjoyed having them very much. Of course, they spoke at our meeting yesterday also. Claude says I'm manpower representative, state FL-CIO, and I enjoy my work very much. We're dealing mostly with young people, getting them in an apprenticeship program, and primarily the minority groups, blacks, but that's what we're designed for. But I expect we've got more whites than we have blacks. Don't you reckon, Bob? I think so. I think it's running about 70-30. But here lately, more blacks have been coming, and we had a lot of problems to start with getting people, primarily blacks in the apprenticeship program in Pascagoula. But the unions have opened their doors and opened up their hearts now, and our job is getting a little easier every day. We're still hunting a hound on the West Bank, Claude. We're going to find it one of these days. We're going to run that training program for them like we want to.
Right.
But it's we have our difficulties with Litton Ship System. The company, they'll promise you one thing today, and tomorrow they done forgot what they said they was going to do. But they have a couple of guys over the training program, Mr. Don Massengale, and he always has some kind remarks to say about Claude, but Claude does him too, and I have some for him. And I've known the guy a long time. He was with the Mississippi National Guard. I knew him then, and I didn't really get along too well with him back then either, Claude, so there's nothing new. But we are progressing, and I think in time, we've been in existence now 11 months. Next month will be a year. And I feel we've made some progress, and I hope in the years to come that we'll make more. One thing I want to talk about is Mr. Robbins is not going to be running for vice president from the southern part of Mississippi. We met with the Jackson County Central Labor Council last week, and they endorsed Russell Kelly. Now, he's my business agent, and he is a very progressive, liberal minded person. He's 31 years old. He's been president of our local 2 years. He's been elected business agent 2 terms, and he's still 31 years old. So he started out about 17 years old as a union member. And I could say a lot of nice things about Russell, but I hope you people will consider him in your caucus and things, and we'd like you to support him. He's, I think, be an asset to Brother Ranch. And anytime your company wants a training program of any type, I'll be happy to come and discuss it with the unions first, because if the unions don't want it, we don't want the company to have it, and they're not going to get it. So we'll block it through the Department of Labor where they don't get it. One thing a lot of the companies does, they try to get a training program where they've got people laid off. They've got to have everybody working. They can't get trained new people with employees laid off. So I'll be happy at any time if any of you's got any questions. I'm not going to take too much of your time today, but I'll be here like I call it through Wednesday. And anybody that's got any questions about training program, will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Turner. Now, just to kind of advise you about what he's talking about. He's talking about some of these federal funded programs commonly known as jobs programs, where the federal government puts up a certain amount of money to train employees in a plant. Now, anywhere where you have an organized plant, where you have a union, before that program can be put into effect, it must also be approved by the collective bargaining agent in that plant. Now, we have had 1 or 2 situations come up since Brother Turner's been on the program, whereby people made application for a grant to train people, and after he checked it out, he found out they had people on layoff status and told them what they could do. In other words, not to fund that program until they had rehired and reemployed the people in the layoff status. So at least in a couple of situations, Brother Turner, I'm familiar with that at least you stopped at least 2 of those kinds of situations even getting off the ground. Now, the other gentleman that I mentioned just before I introduced Brother Turner's brother Thomas, who should need no introduction to most of you. He was at our convention 2 years ago. When he was at that convention, we were in the middle of a strike with the city employees here in Jackson. And after we got that program going in Pascagoula, it became very apparent that we needed a very dedicated and qualified black person to head that program up. And the local union here wasn't doing too good from a financial point of view. And Bob Thomas either had a choice of taking a job down there or else taking a job with the International Union, which meant he'd have to leave the state. So I talked with the A. Philip Randolph people, and they in turn agreed to hire Bob and put him in the program, and he's actually running the outreach program, which is a part of our total program down there. Now, we have 1 office building. They're all in the same office, but keep in mind that they're funded from 2 different sources. Now, Brother Turner has a secretary, and she's black, by the way. And also, Brother Thomas has several people on his staff. So at this time, Bob, we're going to ask you to give the board a brief report on your activities in Pascagoula and what you think's been accomplished and where we are right now with the outreach program that you head up down there.
All right, thank you, Brother Ramsey. I would like to get this little plug in first. Brother Turner was talking about Kelly. And Kelly is very, and the word liberal is overworked to me. But Kelly is a person with understanding and feeling. And where I'm working, there can be no distinction of color, whether you're black or white. We just work with people. And Kelly told me in talking about Brother Ramsey, he said, I heard so many stories about Claude Ramsey, I thought he had horns on his head. He said, but the man is just the opposite of what I've been hearing. Now, in the Pascagoula area, due to the kind of work we've been doing, the union image has changed considerably. When we first went in there, we had to fight all kind of organizations in there that wanted to keep us out. But now, we've got the people working with us. And incidentally, Brother Ramsey, I'd like to report at this time that in keeping with what you caused me to learn several years ago, I've become very active in that community. And as a result of that, the first 2 black people ever hired in the city of Pascagoula and the county government has been hired in the tax assessor's office. And I was pushing the organization that already exists, furnishing a little leadership from behind. Right. And they are now getting massing to conduct a voter registration drive in there. And we hope to hook them with the A. Philip Randolph Institute.
And what office is that?
This is the tax assessor's office.
The tax assessor's office.
And we've got a commitment for 2 others that just came about Friday morning.
Good.
So we're making some progress in there. And communicating with the community, as I said, the union image is changing. Now, very briefly, I'd like to say that last year, this time, I was sent to Pascagoula to work as assistant director of the project there, the A. Philip Randolph Institute. In this outreach program. Since that time, I have become the director of that program. And we have a full-time tutor. I have an assistant, and I have one of the best whites working with me that I could find anywhere in the state of Mississippi. A man who had worked in that shipyard for some 19 years and know everybody in there. You know all about the union. So this is the best man could possibly be found for that position. We can sit there at the telephone and watch him, and he can just connect anywhere he wants to when we're trying to find a job for somebody. Now, primarily, our job was to seek out the blacks, young blacks, get them into the metal trade through the apprenticeship program. Well, we found, in working with the unions there, all 13 of them, I believe, that this job has become fairly easy, and we couldn't confine ourselves to just working with black people and just working with apprentices. So I think our record shows that we have caused more whites to be employed than blacks in the apprenticeship program and other industrial placements. Well, we have now on file some 1,100 applicants that have come through that office since we set foot down there. And we also can show that we have actually caused some 400 or 500 people to be working for not less than $2.72 an hour. Just last Tuesday, I believe it was, we had an order to fill 30 positions. And they wanted laborers. We sent 15 white women, we sent 15 black women in the yard as laborers. Now, we had some discussion about that because management wanted men. And for two reasons we said women. On the outset, they didn't want to pay men the kind of hourly salary that they ought to get. So we're telling them that if they up a little bit on the money, we can furnish men. Otherwise, we can't. We furnish what we can get. Then, at the same time, we're trying to get women off of that $1.60 an hour in that area. And believe me, women are really talking it up as far as the unions are concerned. And they're very happy about it. One other thing is that we told them, when you send an order up here and say labor, you don't say men, you don't say women. Now, if you want to discriminate against the women and just hire men, then you stand the charges that they're going to bring before you. And we're going to help them bring some charges. So we're pressuring every way we can to make things open for the people in that area. And I thank God, that this organization, this Brother Ramsey and this executive board, saw fit to put this program in that area. And as the old saying goes, we ain't seen nothing yet. We are even taking people with 9th grade educations now. From 9th, 10th, 11th people that fell out down there. And in our office, we are training these people. We're giving them classroom study. And almost make them qualify themselves for the apprenticeship program. Because we're bringing their educational level up to 12th grade, have them take a GED test, and they're automatically ready for the apprenticeship. So you see, we're doing everything possible we can to help people. And every person that comes through our office, and this is a must, whether we actually employ him, get him employed or not, he must sign a union checkoff. And that's one thing we never leave on. If he comes in that office, say 5 minutes, he signs a union authorization for the checkoff of his duties. And we in turn carry this to the business agents and say, you watch for this guy. And when you see him hired in, that's your man, you get it. And so we think we're helping in that area. I could talk to you all day about this thing, and I love it. But I'll quit here and hope you get the idea of what we're doing down there. Everything is real lovely. And it's going to be even better than it is now. And one thing in particular I like talking about the West Bank is that up to the last few weeks when Brother Ramsey was down there in that meeting, training programs on the West Bank were hidden from the unions. They concurred for the funds and all, but they knew nothing about what kind of training was going on in that yard. And as a result, they would take 12 young blacks, and they wanted to be machinists. They'd train them for 4 weeks as machinists, and all of a sudden, arbitrarily, the company would take them out of the machinists and put them in some other craft. That this is what you'll be. And we didn't know that, but we found it out. So we had some meetings. And now, through Brother Turner, these things are opening up because all of the union activity comes through him. All of the company activity. If the company wants to say something to some of the union, they come through him. If the union wants to say something to the company, they come through him. So he's the center of the whole thing now, that training program on West Bank. He coordinates all the activity. So anytime they want to come up with a program, they got to come through Brother Turner. And that's how we're going to find the hound of this whole thing over there. The man said, I can't believe I ate that whole thing. But they're going to eventually come through. And we're going to get a hound for the whole thing. I think, and we'll be available for the next 2 or 3 days if there are any specific questions. And I had a thought a little while ago. And sometime within the next 2 or 3 weeks, I want to get the names and address of all executive board members, and I'll send you a copy of the wage structure in that yard, and give you a little progress report on paper as to what we're doing. Thank you, Bob.
Contract, Bob, I got some.
By the way, the contract that I was supposed to fill was just 35 apprentices in a year, And we've overrun that so fast, I don't know where we are. I mean, it didn't take long to get 35 apprentices in it. And we were just working out there now for free, I guess. Because the progress is so good where it used to take us 8 months ago, a month, to process and get 6 apprentices in that yard. We're now doing that kind of work in a week. 5, 6 apprentices a week. This is the way it's going.
Thank you, Bob. Of course, I know that you said you could talk already about the program, and so could I. But I am very happy to see that program, the total program, making the progress that it is, and we'll probably want to talk about that a little bit later on. But before you leave, Bob, I had a talk with Bob Woodson earlier, and he wasn't up to coming to the board meeting today. He's not too sure whether he'll be able to make it tomorrow or not, and he asked me if I would ask you to serve as chairman of the committee that I've named him to. That will be chairman of the Education, Cope, and Legislative Committee with Brother Rainey as vice chairman. And in the event you have to leave, then Brother Rainey will take over, and this committee will have to consider a number of resolutions, which I think you're going to have to break up into several subcommittees to get the job done. But I realize you have to leave out of here about noon Wednesday. So we'll, anyhow, I'd like for you to take on that committee in his place. Because I want to have at least one black person as chairman of one of our committees. So just write this down, and in the morning I'll make all of these announcements. Now, I have swapped places with you and him. I had you originally on the Constitution and Bylaws Committee, Brother Schaefer as chairman. So I just simply put Bob Woodson down as a member of the Constitution and Bylaws Committee and swapped places and made you chairman of this other committee. So you just keep this in mind. Okay?
Very good, very good.
All right. Now, the next person that I want you to hear from needs no introduction. He is he was a member of our board until just recently, when he wrote me a letter of resignation around about December the 1, I think it was. And, of course, I find myself in a position here of having done some things without proper authority, and when we get through with all this, I would hope the board would ratify what I've done up to this point. If you don't, I'm in one hell of a fix, that's for sure. But anyhow, during the Miami convention, it was my pleasure or displeasure, however you want to put it. Tom and I worked out several arrangements back here several years ago, and I won't tell you what all of them was, but one of them was that we'd alternate going to these national conventions, and this last one, it was my time to go. So I went to the Miami convention, and while I was there, I met Miles Stanley, who was president of the West Virginia Council, who is also president of an organization known as the Appalachian Council. Now, the Appalachian Council, in this organization, it was formed by the officers of the various state councils covered by the Appalachian Act. As many of you probably know, just a few short years ago, a few counties in northeast Mississippi were placed under the Appalachian Act, which made them eligible for certain funds that they would not have been eligible for without being under the Act. But the Appalachian Council that I'm talking about is separate and apart from the Appalachian Act. It doesn't have anything whatsoever to do with the Appalachian Act. I want that perfectly clearly understood. At Miami, Miles Stanley told me that the Appalachian Council had been approached by a group of Choctaw Indians from Philadelphia who had been funded, so to speak, to build some homes, and they got all kinds of plans over there about probably building a recreation center, maybe a whole community, maybe a hospital and everything. But they were interested in a training program whereby they could train young Indians, get them into the apprenticeship programs and become journeyman craftsmen. And I told Miles that as far as I was concerned, as president of the organization, I would certainly be willing to cooperate, and I felt that the board would. But that in the absence of a board meeting, I was going to go ahead and assume the responsibility of starting to move on this program because they needed it yesterday, not today. This is how important it was. So he in turn called the executive director of the organization over, who was on payroll full time, a man by the name of Wilkes, who will be here, I understand, Monday. And then Wilkes sat down with me and went over with me this program in detail, the manpower training program that they have going throughout the Appalachian region. And according to him and according to Miles Stanley, their program has probably been one of the most successful manpower recruiting and training programs of all programs funded by the federal government. This involves recruiting, pre-apprenticeship training, and indentured apprenticeship training, and eventually, becoming the journeyman craftsman. Now, the Indians had approached them for some help and some assistance. And Miles told me that they had sufficient funds on hand to put on board and hire 3 journeyman craftsmen and money enough to also hire a field coordinator. So after talking this thing over with Tom, and I think I might have talked it over with Jack a little bit before we got into the thing in depth, we decided to go ahead and move in on the program because of the shortness of time. They were running out of time. And they had already made contact or had a brick mason in the area that apparently had been working over there some, who was interested in the job as a tutor or trainer for brick masons, whatever you want to call him. They wanted 40 young Indians involved in the project program, which would be split up in 3 different crafts. Part of them would be carpenters, part of them would be painters, and the rest would be brick masons. And they wanted me to provide them with a journeyman out of each craft to begin pre-apprenticeship training for these Indians. Well, checking our list of affiliations, I found that only the painters in Philadelphia was affiliated, in Meridian, who has jurisdiction over the Philadelphia area. And we adopted a rule in the beginning with the Pascagoula program that we would not hire anybody and put them on our payroll, or engage them in any of these manpower programs that were freeloaders and that were not affiliated with this organization. That was one of the criteria that we used. Consequently, I called the business agent of the painters up in Meridian, Mr. Mosley, and in about 2 days he called me back and told me he thought he had the man we needed for the job. He was an expert in just about all of the areas of paper hanging, painting, and everything. Then I talked with the business agents of the carpenters local here in Jackson, who is affiliated, and asked them to see if they could find a man that preferably lived close by in the area. I knew they had members that commuted back and forth. So within about 2 days, he also come up with a man. So I set up a meeting one night about 8 o'clock because we had a conflict with another meeting, and we had a meeting in my office with a gentleman that they sit down to fill in for Brother Dees, and we'll get back to him in a few minutes. This was all before we got here. End result was that we put these guys on board. They went on the payroll of the Appalachian Council as of the March 1. They proceeded then to go directly to the reservation. The Indian chief and his assistants over there had selected 40 young Indians to enroll in the program. I forget the breakdown by crafts now, but that's not really important. But they went to work right away. Then our next job was to find a guy to coordinate this program and to help expand it, not just on the Indian reservation, but to help develop programs with the building trades, period. Not just recruiting and training apprentices, but to help them develop programs and bring their membership up to date on changes within the trade, which is possible and money is available for that. And after discussing this thing at some length with Brother Schaefer and Brother Knight, the three of us will take this responsibility. We decided that we had one man that was a member of this board that could fill all of the qualifications that we felt was necessary in this job. Number one, the man, as we saw it, should believe in what we're trying to do. He should have the labor movement at heart. He should believe in the programs of the state AFL-CIO. And certainly he should know something about the trade he came out of. He ought to be able to speak the building tradesman's language. He ought to know how to deal with contractors and people of this kind. And after careful consideration, we decided Brother S.H.D.'s was the man that we needed on that job. So Brother Schaefer located him. He was in, what was the name of that town? Kenosha? Kenosha, Wisconsin, working with his tools. And he was making, if you pardon the expression, a hell of a lot more money with his tools than this job would have paid. But after twisting his arm quite at length, after spending money on several different telephone calls, Brother D's, I imagine after consulting with his wife, who was also up there, decided he'd take this job and come back to Mississippi. I explained to him that I'd try to get him on the payroll at the highest rate possible, that there would be some expense money involved as far as paying per diem, as far as traveling is concerned, that he would have quite a bit of leeway in his activities, that he'd actually be working out of our office, so to speak, and we need some help, as you know. And actually, I think that between the three guys that we have here, they're going to really help the state council an awful lot. They're going to take I know some of the burden off of me and Tom Knight, some other people, and some of these other things that we have to spend a lot of time on, such as affiliation. But anyhow, Brother D's got in here. When was it, Brother D's? 6th?
3rd of March.
3rd of March. Anyhow, we talked him into putting him on the payroll on the 1st of March. He was on the payroll by the time he got here. Of course, his first job, and he hasn't completed that yet, is to become familiar with what the duties of his job is. And of course, the first thing that we did after he got here is that I called up the chief of the tribe in Philadelphia, and we set up a meeting with the tribal chieftain. And I invited the heads of the different state agencies, the MES, the vocational ed people, the apprenticeship people, and all these people to come over and sit in. Brother Knight and myself went over. And we spent all morning talking about that overall program of some of the plans that he has over there to build homes, to build a recreation center, and just to develop a brand new community, so to speak. And frankly, I found this chief to be a very intelligent person. I think he's got a lot on the ball. And I'm just tickled to death of what we've got going on that reservation right now. I was absolutely amazed to see the progress that has been made, especially by those people in the bricklaying end of it. Now, I didn't get a chance to get out and see what the carpenters and the painters are doing because they were several miles out away from the reservation on another job. But it would have made you feel mighty good to have seen those young Indians in there laying those bricks and setting those things up and doing the work that they were doing just as pre-apprenticeship training. Now, now that Brother Dees is here, he of course will be more or less overseeing that program. First thing he'll have to do, of course, is to become acquainted with all of the building trades groups, especially in the areas in commuting distance. I'd say Meridian, Hattiesburg, Columbus, Vicksburg, places like that, Jackson. We don't want to get him spread too thin too fast, Marvin. But anyhow, we think we've got a man on board now that can be of some real assistance, especially to the building trade. So Brother Dees sent in his resignation, and the next thing he knew, we had hired him, put him on this job. So Brother Dees, we're going to give you a chance now to have a word to say about the program. We realize that you just got back from a seminar at which you went over and attended, at which we hope that maybe you might have learned a little bit more about what you're supposed to do. So right now we're going to let you have the floor.
Thank you, President Ramsey. Charles fills in on most of it. He is on the board of directors of the Appalachian Council. He's president of the AFL-CIO are the board of directors of this council, if I understand right. I get wrong, you correct me.
Well, we were allowed, the understanding was if we participated in the program, they got something worked out, some kind of a way whereby all of Mississippi could join the Appalachian Council.
Right.
And therefore, as a result of that, I will be on the board. Yes, right.
I believe they're going to meet in April.
Next month sometime. I got to go up there next month, early part of next month, yeah.
This Indian reservation, from what I found out the week or 2 weeks, or a week that I've been there, this time it's Nashville, most of the work that they was doing there, I'm saying this for benefit of building trade people now. And of course, the other board members need to know it too, so they can go back and tell the building trade people in areas that's not here. Most of the work that they have been doing and were doing out there was being done wrapped.
Yeah.
And they formed their own construction company, the Tata Construction Company. And if we hadn't taken the opportunity, I say if the labor movement hadn't taken this opportunity, they would have continued with training ramps out of their own people. Well, they're all interested in organized labor. And they want to be in organized labor. The ones that I've talked to, and all of them on the training program now. So it's given the local unions that have that jurisdiction a grand opportunity to participate in this. And when they are indentured as apprentices, they will sign and join the right affiliated local union. And they will become members of that local union, if the local union will take them. We're not trying to say you got to take them. But if they don't, something will be worked out, and they'll form their own local. They can't form a local, but they'll just form a rat local out there, and they'll go ahead and do the work rat, and then they'll be trained as well all over the country. Be taking more of our work away from us, so we can't lose more than Mississippi. We done lost enough. And in Nashville, I met with the southern area of the Appalachian Council representatives, state coordinators. Met, I believe, 12, 13 people there. Some states have only 2 and 3 coordinators in the state. It was a real informative meeting. I learned a lot, and I still go to sleep at night wondering what so-and-so said, how that hooked in, and this hooked in. So it's going to take some time. But I will ask the cooperation of all labor forces in the state of Mississippi to help us out on this. Together, we can make a go of it. I'm happy to be back in the state of Mississippi. Of course, because I told you I was making considerably more money than I'll be making now. But peace of mind is worth a lot. As I was thinking, men in Nashville Friday afternoon at our staff meeting, I said, I reckon, just before we close my meeting, I said, every man here has welcomed me aboard since I've been here, and I'd like to tell them that I'm happy to be aboard. And our field director, Dorothy Johnson,
said, well, said, I read on the application what Brother Ramsey sent in, that in 3 months' time, you'd have 5 programs going and 3 in upgrading the staff. I said, well, just a minute, Brother John. I want to tell you something that you have found or forgotten that you already knew. A man go to hell for lying, say you can't see. But they got a laugh out of that one. I said, well, that's a good remark. Well, IBEW brother sitting across the table said, that's just IBEW work. So, it's happy to be back in the state, and I will be trying to contact different building trades, construction, local union, and hopefully get the cooperation out of them to build some more programs. Paul touched on the upgrading program. If I understand right, we have some money right now that's earmarked, but we'll have to get a program started practically yesterday to have time to complete it. Our contract is out May the 15th, and it will be completed by then, but it don't give us much time. And that kind of a program is teaching classes and blueprint reading. For instance, in the electrical trade, I can think of that more than anything else. We have lots of German wiremen, like myself, that has never spliced any high voltage cable. And that would be a good class if we can get an instructor and set up in some local union to teach the German cable splicing. And I'm sure same things can happen in carpentry, painters, brick masons, iron workers, in any local union. That can be done. But it'll just be up for me to contact the business manager or president of that local union and try to get something started. And Brother Wilkes was real optimistic about the new contract. He said he didn't have any doubt in the world that we would get a new one. But he says, you know, the people in Washington says they like to play the cat and mouse game, keep you guessing as long as they can. But he says they have started calling now, asking questions about it that they've got already on their files. All they got to do is just open up the filing cabinet and read it there. But says they'd rather harass us a little bit, call us up. So thank you, Brother Ramsey. Thank you again for being back to state of the city.
Thank you, Brother Dees. I'm sure that everybody present appreciates your report. And we further appreciate the fact that you have a lot of work yet to do. Now let me ask you this, Brother Dees. You realize, of course, that we're going to be electing officers at this convention, and that some of us might not be around. And we'll probably have a new board and everything, and whatever is done for next year, the policy should be set by the board that's elected at this convention. I'd like to extend to you an invitation to meet with this group as I'm still president, because I think there's a few things we need to look into in connection with your particular activity. I don't think it's necessary for the other two of you, Brother Thomas and Brother Turner, to also sit in, because I think we got things underhand pretty well there. Now, we appreciate all of you sitting in with us. We hope you've enjoyed your lunch. You're welcome to leave now if you'd like to. If you'd like to sit in for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome to stay, because we don't have any seats. But if any time during the course of this meeting you feel that you've got to leave, you go ahead and leave. I'll give you the names of the people. What do you say, Brother Thomas?
I'd like to say one thing, I'd like to do one thing. I would like to say that he's building trees on the Gulf Coast is working with my project. We have bought 10 acres of land down there. We're trying to set up 130 units of low rental housing for the people. And we're moving pretty fast with that. And of course, I think it was important enough to mention. And the people are eating it up. They really want this. We see some shacks down there. They're paying as much as $140, $50 a month. And we've got some real modern stuff that's going to come up there.
We're going to build it with union labor.
All union labor.
We're going to train the people, make craftsmen out of it. What we're doing.
I've got a little story down there that was come out of that magazine, The Senate, I'd like to go get several copies.
It's all right. Get it and pass it
Then
on.
I'd like to be excused.
All right, okay. All right, now let me give you the names of the people that's on the payroll. Did you have another word?
Fill out something else, then something else that skipped my mind.
Yeah.
Vote on, Indian reservation and training these Indians, putting them in the apprenticeship program. I hope all the unions that'll be represented there will be working through, realize that apprentice can't go out there and do this work alone. And Choctaw Construction Company, Charter Construction Company, has agreed to hire union craftsmen to work with them and train them there. I didn't bring that out, I want to be sure to get that in for, as I said before, this part of the work being done, non-union there out on this reservation. And they're building, right now, they done got it started, a community store to run a non-profit, just for the Indian reservation.
Yeah.
They're building a hospital, school, recreation.
Yeah, if everything works out, it'll be a big project. Well, let me tell you who we got on the payroll. Some of you might know him. The carpenter's name is William Thomas, member of the Jackson local. He lives Route 9, Philadelphia. That's in there close around the reservation. Brother Moser, the painter's recommended a gentleman by the name of Cecil King, and according to all of the reports, he's really turned out to be a top-notch guy. And Brother Taylor, you'll be interested in a development that happened after all of this got underway. In my course of my conversation with Mr. Mosley with the painters, I advised him that about the affiliation problem in the Meridian area with the trades, that we had a golden opportunity here to develop a real bona fide program involving work for a lot of people, not only just apprenticeship training, but work for some journeymen and what have you. But that we were positively not going to fool with anybody that was riding free, that they had to be affiliated with this organization before they could become a part of it. And I also advised the chief in our conversations, and anybody else that would listen, that we fully intended this program to be a union job from the start to finish. And when I addressed the 40 young Indians the day that we kicked the program off, I stressed this, and I turned around to the three instructors as I was leaving and said it loud enough for the Indians all to hear it. I said, you want to make damn sure you make good union members out of each one of them while you're working with them. And I told the chief in our conversation, I said, Chief, I think we ought to have a clear understanding that if we're going to have any involvement in this program, it has to be a union job. We're not training people just to be training them. There's going to be a job there when we get through training them, and we expect them to take out of membership in his appropriate union. I said, I've got a tag out there on my car that I'd like you to take a look at. So he went out there and looked at it, and it said, union wages buy more, join the AFL-CIO. Well, we had several conversations. Brother Knight was there along with several other people, and we had to go get a sandwich at a hamburger joint. There's no place to eat over there. And anyhow, he wound up getting a photographer, and he had to get some pictures taken of the group that went over, and then he wanted one with just me and him standing together under that sign there about the Choctaw Nation. So the chief fully understands, and he agrees, and this is what he wants. He wants those Indians to learn the skills of a trade, and he wants them to be a member of the proper union. Now, the important thing, Brother Taylor, that I wanted you to know about was that Mr. Bass, the business agent of the Carpenters Local in Meridian, Mississippi, called me just a few days ago inquiring about that program. He's very concerned about it, and he wanted to know what he had to do to get some of the work and get involved in it. I said, Brother Bass, it's very simple. All you have to do is to fill out an affiliation form and start paying 20 cents a member a month to the state AFL-CIO, and you'll become part of it. And I said, the people that we're training are actually under your jurisdiction, which means you'll be picking up new numbers if you get into the state AFL-CIO. Otherwise, we're thinking seriously about working out an arrangement with the Jackson local where they become members of the Jackson local. Well, that gentleman will be here Monday with his affiliation form and his check to affiliate. Now, we hope before it's all over with that we can work some other things out with some of these other freeloaders. Now, we'll talk some more about the freeloading problem before the convention's over with. We got a resolution that you'll be having under discussion. Does anybody have any questions of these three gentlemen while they're here? If not, we've got quite a bit of business we need to get out of the way.
If any of them's interested, I'll be glad to talk with them.
All right,
anytime.
you'll be around for the convention, and all of you will, as a matter of fact, right?
Yeah, I got to see about grandpa. Y'all have a good board.
All right. Now, the first thing that I want to do, as we always have to do, of course, prior to each convention, is to adopt or select committees, rather, to run the convention. Now, you got copies of this?
Mr. Knight, will you pass that to the board?
Will you get copies of the thing? They're going to have to make some changes in it. And I discovered something, and when I got this pad, make sure everybody gets them around because you're going to have to make some changes in the printed copy.
Hadn't they got these in there?
No, sir.
No.
No, that was too late to get in the kit.
Saves a little bit of work for you.
I discovered something, believe it or not. You know, at the last convention, we adopted a resolution combining and cutting down on the number of overall committees. You know, we had a whole slew of committees, and at that time, they combined a lot of them and eliminated some of them into one. And I don't know whether that resolution did it or whether it was just a typographical error or what, but after checking the Constitution out, I found out we didn't have any provisions for a Rules Committee. Well, I decided we had to have a Rules Committee, so I went ahead and appointed one. I don't know how we can operate without rules to run a convention by, so I'm sure that was just something we left out when we redid the Constitution. Now, would you like to take a few minutes and look these things over? Do you want me to read them out to you myself? You want to just read them out? Let me tell you where we are and make the changes. Huh?
Tell us what the changes are, anyway.
All right. The Audit Committee, of course, has already met, and they have their report ready to make. We've appointed, of course, the Restoration Credentials Committee, Brother Jackson, which you're chairman of, and you see who you've got there to work with you. And, of course, if there's anybody else around you think you'd like to have on that committee, feel free to buttonhole them and put them on there. And, of course, this applies to anybody else's committee as well. Now, Rules Committee, well, let's see, I better go at the top and come down, I guess. Constitution and Bylaws, we've asked Brother Schaefer to handle that one. We've got two resolutions on changes in the Constitution and Bylaws, and one of them is going to have to receive quick action by the convention because it involves a nomination and election of officers. And this was brought about by the snafu that we found ourselves in at the last convention on the Gulf Coast, where it was late at night before we got through with the election of officers and knew who had been elected because it took so long to count the ballots where we had this contest. So in order to avoid that and to save some time, the Executive Committee felt that we ought to amend our Constitution whereby we would nominate officers on Tuesday morning at 10 and then elect them at 3 o'clock on the same day. This gives us time, the girls time, to prepare the ballots and so forth to conduct the election. Now, that's the reason for that. Now, if we don't adopt that change, gentlemen, I'm in real trouble, because I have worked this agenda up around the fact that we will elect officers on Tuesday afternoon, the 3rd. So if you decide you want to stay like you were to start with, man, we've got work to do. And I'm in real trouble when it comes to redoing this agenda. I just want to leave that thought with you. Now, of course, the other resolution, Brother Schaefer, is simply one that will cut down on that notification time, I believe. All of you have got copies of the resolutions.
This resolution number 1.
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
Now, all of you should have all of the resolutions in your kits. And before I get any further, there's no point in me going, I don't think, over all of the committees with you.
Well, you said there's no provision in the Constitution for the Rules Committee. Do we need something to change that?
Well, it's just an oversight. When we
Topographical, I'm sure.
when we redo it, which we'll have to do, we'll make sure we put the rules in the Constitution. I'm sure it was an oversight.
See, we reduced the number of committees from 11 to 6. Year before last, and it was just left out.
So we'll put the rules back in. I'm sure that that's agreeable to everybody. We certainly need a rules committee. This was just an oversight. Now y'all can look them over, and if you've got somebody that you think would be a good committee member, would like to serve on one of these committees, we'll add them right here this afternoon, as we always have. We'd like to give you a chance to look them over.
We've got a typographical error in the, or not typographical, it's a misspelling that y'all.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. Callie
Callie.
Woodard, it's C-A-L-L-I-E.
That's,
Which one?
Callie Woodward, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th one down under education cope, that's supposed to be C-A-L-L-I-E.
Place K.
It's I-E, not E-Y.
Yeah,
And you know, you changed Robert Thomas, their chairman, and put somebody else.
That's Callie Woodard?
Yeah.
C-A-L.
L-I-E.
Yeah, y'all want a chance to look those committees over a little bit?
Woodson went to what committee now?
I decided to put him on Constitution and bylaws with Marvin,
Thomas, chairman.
and then if he can't make the convention or something, and he can't make it all, then it won't put a hardship on the committee.
Bob Thomas is the new
Bob
chairman.
Thomas, I thought we ought to have at least one black chairman, so I inserted Bob Woodson as chairman of that committee, and that committee is going to have to break up, Brother Rainey, into about 3 separate committees, subcommittees, and of course, you'll be vice chairman, and I'm sure that you'll wind up handling the legislative end of the thing. I think that you're the man that ought to, prepare the report on the resolutions dealing with legislation.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like
Yes.
to ask one question here.
All right.
The second name under resolutions, Wayman Goodman.
Yeah.
I heard on a newscast in Tupelo last Thursday night that Mr. Wayman Goodman from Columbus was very seriously injured in a fall from where he was working in Tupelo.
Okay.
And he was from Columbus.
That must have been his son, who was said junior. I heard that same thing. I was in Columbus. Said Wayman got a son that age?
He may have. Now, Wayman is on leave from the plant. He is
Marvin
working for
probably
the
knows.
International Union in Louisville.
Yeah, he is. I talked to him, let's see, about 3 nights ago. Wayman is, like Tom said, is down in Louisville working for, trying to organize a plant down there. And I'm sure he wouldn't be in Tupelo. In fact, he's about living down in Louisville.
Has he got a son? He's got a son.
Yeah,
Is it
he
Wayman
does.
Jr. or not?
Not that old. It's
I
not
don't
that
think
old.
he
But,
does.
I went out.
This person was 29 years old. I called Wayman's wife.
This
No relation to.
This newscast said that he was very seriously injured and was in the intensive care unit at the hospital in Tupelo, and I went out.
Said it's no relation.
And I went out to the hospital to inquire, and I couldn't find out anything that I didn't already know from the newscast, because he was in the intensive care unit.
I heard
So, and I was just wondering if it was our Wayman Goodman.
No.
No, apparently not. Does anybody have any other people they want on committees?
I got
Are
one.
there changes called
No,
other
it's,
than swapping?
Well, changes or somebody you
No, I
want on
mean,
the
do
committee?
you have any more changes?
No, I'm about to put Woodson in place of,
We've got one change.
all right, yeah, right. We switched, Martha Alford from, the Education, Legislative Committee over to the Elections Committee. Now, you don't have a copy of the Elections Committee. Let me read the Elections Committee out to you and
Offered it off of the education.
just scratch your period. And if you want to add somebody, we can, but we've got a pretty good sized group already. But let me read you the Elections Committee, and all of this is dependent, really, on whether or not any of these people are candidate for office. If any of them happens to turn up as a candidate for the board, then we've got to scratch them and replace them. So keep this in mind, and I'll read them off to you, and you can write them down on the bottom of that sheet you got, if you'd like to, the proposed election committee. And this, again, keep in mind, is dependent on whether any of them is nominated for office. If they run for office, then we have to find a substitute. Now, under the Constitution, we have to select people from different international unions in different areas of the state. So we, therefore, have got this one ready, just in case. All right, the election committee will be W.H. Wood, chairman. Ann Smallwood.
Change that to Ann Gray. Ann Smallwood's not coming.
Ann
Gray.
Gray, Grey, A-Y.
I think it's E-Y, I believe, I'm not sure.
What is she? What is she?
Dawson,
A-C-W-A. All right, y'all got that change?
We didn't have some.
Yeah, I know you did. We did this after you knocked off. At least Tom did this after he gave me out the other day on one of them jaunts I was on. Joe Davis from Tupelo.
Who?
Joe Davis from Tupelo, who's IBEW. You might want to write down who they're with. Of course, you know Wood is a carpenter.
He's most likely will be a candidate.
Huh?
He's most likely will be.
Well, if he's a candidate, then we'll have to scratch him, replace him with somebody else, and we'll consult with some of y'all to get somebody replacing. Wayne Lee, who's he with, Tom? Firefighter.
Hattiesburg.
Ann Smith. You got all that down here somewhere, Tom.
IUE Columbus.
IUE. L.J. Brown, he's with the laborers from Gulfport. And Martha Alford, that's the girl we asked you to strike from the other committee. And now she's from where? I am Meridian. Now again,
Tom, maybe we could stand one up around in resolution.
on which one? You want to add somebody to it? Who'd you like to have on it?
R.A. Witherell.
Is he a delegate?
Yes.
Spell him R.A. what?
R.A. Witherell,
Junior, isn't it?
W-I-T-H, how you spell the rest of it?
W-I-T-H-E-R-O-W.
E-R-O-W. I've met him, he's a nice man. I'll be agreeable to everybody to put him on that committee?
On the resolution?
Resolutions Committee.
Yeah.
All right, does anybody else have anybody they'd like to add?
Chairman, I have a young fellow coming with me. He is first convention, he's young in the movement. Roy Tipton, I'd like to have him added to that resolutions committee.
Roy Tipton?
Right.
Roy Tipton. All right. Now, let me tell you what we've got here, what we've also done in addition now, to make sure. Somebody said that Joe Franks, well, Joe told me in Pascagoula he wouldn't be able to make it. He didn't think. But we put him down on the Rules Committee, Marvin, but if he doesn't come, we're going to put in his place Mr. James Shirley out of the same organization. You might want to make a note of that.
No, James is
Shirley's
now the
ACWA.
no.
Oh, he is? All right. All right. Anyhow, James Shirley will replace Joe Franks if Joe's not here. If Joe's here, then Joe's your man. Now, we got anything else there, Tom?
On the Constitution and bylaws, I'd like to add H.M. Curry.
Constitution and bylaws?
H.M. Curry. C-U-R-R-Y.
What committee is he going on? Rules?
No, Constitution and bylaws.
C-U-R-R-Y?
C-U-R-R-Y. He's Vice President, CWA Local.
What's his first name is?
H.M.
H.M.
Curry.
H.M. Curry, and you want him on Constitution and bylaws?
Yeah, right.
Everybody agree to that? Brother Rainey?
I would like to see J.D. Wright on the Education, Cope, and Legislative replace Martha Alford since we're losing one on that.
All right, what's the name?
J.D. Wright, he's Jackson firefighter, local 87.
J.D. Wright.
R-I-G-H,
W-R-I-G-H-T. And I didn't get in on the earlier part of the meeting. I heard a nomination for the executive board, and as most of you probably know, I'm going to be retiring in June, and I won't be in the state too much. Then I'm going to be traveling a good bit, and so you'll have to elect somebody to replace me on the executive board, and I would like to place for your consideration this person, J.D. Wright. He's a boy, 35 years old. He's just been promoted to lieutenant on the fire department here, and he has attended several labor schools, most recently about 3 months ago at Tallahassee, Florida, at the University of Florida, and which incidentally is on his own time. The union paid his expenses, but he had to make up his own time to go to these schools. And he's very innocent, I say about 35 years old, and I think we need some youth on our board, since we've got, us old folks has got to be replaced sometime. And this boy's a very energetic worker. He's worked for me in the legislature for about 4 years, and he knows quite a number of the legislators now who's going up there with me and how to lobby and go about it. And I think he'll be an asset to Claude when I leave to help him out in the legislature.
I assume that you would be willing to place him in nomination.
Yes, sir. Sure will.
Well, now, of course, now we were going to get around to find out how many vacancies and so forth we was going to have before the meeting's over with. So you done took care of one of them. So we'll get to the rest of them a little bit later on. Now, do we have any other additions to the rules committees? You satisfied with the additions we've made? Do we have a motion then to adopt the rules committee, the committees as we've changed them there?
Move that be adopted.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion signify it to say an aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Now on the resolutions, we've got, should have all of the resolutions running from 1 through 13 in your kit.
No, sir, you don't have number 7. Number 7's not in there.
Number
It was
7.
only done Friday, you know.
That was the one we was waiting on. That's no fault insurance.
Give me 5 minutes, I'll get it. How about that?
All right, that's the one dealing with no fault insurance, and the reason.
Well, how about you?
What about, Mr. Knight, have you got the agenda to give to us?
Yeah.
These are backwards.
Now let me explain to you the reason for this delay. I wrote up a resolution on no fault insurance back when we was writing up the other resolutions, because I felt it was a subject of great concern to our membership. And then, after I'd written this resolution up, several bills dealing with no-fault insurance was introduced in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. And the Senate held a hearing on no-fault insurance. You guys would all got a kick out of this one. I told Tom Knight before I went over, of course, we felt we ought to go over and testify, at least let them know we're in favor of no fault, at least we're in favor of trying to do something about lowering the cost of automobile insurance. We wasn't too sure that the bills that had been introduced did the job that we felt ought to be done. There was a resolution also on the docket that would set up a study committee comprised of members of both houses, which would study this subject rather carefully and have legislation prepared for introduction at the next session. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with what we're talking about, but I know that all of you know that you're paying through the nose for automobile insurance. And the thing that amazed me when I got into the subject and began to study it in order to discuss the matter on an intelligent basis before the Senate subcommittee was that I discovered, to get the significance of this, that only 14.5% of the premium dollar paid by the average policyholder comes back to you in the form of repair or what have you, damages on your automobile. 14.5%. The rest of your money goes for attorney fees either for lawyers representing the insurance companies or lawyers representing damage suits. And then, of course, a certain amount of it is spent for overhead and advertising and things of that kind. But the important thing is the small percent of that dollar that comes back to the policyholder, and that's the reason the cost is so high. And I told Tom Knight, when we were getting ready to make that appearance before that subcommittee hearing that day, that I would lay him 10-1 that the Honorable Ross Barnett would be the first gentleman to want to testify against any form of no-fault insurance. And I wasn't surprised at all when I walked into the committee room, and this was an unusual situation. For the first time in my memory, this committee was wide open to the press. They had the TV cameras present. They had all of the news reporters present. And we had quite a few people to testify. We had some insurance representatives, for instance, who themselves testified more or less along the same lines that I testified, that they knew that something had to be done about the high cost of automobile insurance, and their position was about the same as the one that we took, that we did not have enough knowledge at this time to enact a piece of legislation dealing with this subject properly. Therefore, opposition was that we favored no-fault insurance in principle, but that we felt that we ought to support the resolution setting up the subcommittee to study the matter further and be prepared for introduction and try to pass legislation in next year's session. It was kind of funny the way it all happened. You know, these news reporters, the TV people, you see, they have a problem. They only have 15 minutes to use for news. And they have to make decisions as to who they're going to show in that 15-minute period. And it just so happened that they showed the Honorable Ross Barnett. Yes. And Claude Ramsey is the two principal guys on the news that night. And of course, I'm a little bit irritated over the fact that they give Barnett more time than they did me. But the fact remains that at least they pretty well got our point. And most of
They almost had you supporting Ross Barnett on the news, didn't they?
well, one of the stations didn't get all of it on the film, they tell me. But anyhow, one of the stations carried a good story, and they got the point across that I wanted to get across, and that's where the money was going for damage suit lawyers and lawyers representing the insurance companies. One of the stations at least did that, and of course, we got a pretty good write-up in one or two papers about it. But anyhow, this was our position. Now, that resolution has passed the House to set up the committee to study no fault. It is now in the Rules Committee in the House. I talked to the Speaker of the House just a few days ago, who's chairman of the Rules Committee, to find out if he had any intentions of calling a meeting of that committee and reporting that resolution out. And of course, he's still got some time left. But he is very sympathetic, believe it or not, Mr. Junkin is, to the no-fault idea. And the reason for it, of course, is that he owns a fleet of trucks. And it's costing him like hell for insurance for those trucks. So he has a selfish interest in it. So that quite often is what happens in the legislature, that people over there, they usually, if something comes up, like Betty Long, for instance, from Meridian LD, on the workman's comp bill, she represented Betty Long more than she did them. How many thousand voters you got? Well, anyhow, she represented Betty Long's interests and spoke on the floor against lowering the number of people covered under that act from 8 to 5, and she was thinking about that little restaurant she owns out there, that she is going to be forced to carry compensation on those people. But anyhow, I'm not going to try to get into a full-face report on legislative activity now, because I got to talk to the convention Monday, and I can't make this same speech 3 or 4 times. You know what I'm talking about, so I just would hope that you just let me make that Monday and not have to get into all of that this time. Okay. All right. This has been a hectic period. Now, Amy, if you think we were in trouble, you had a hard time when you was down here with us working prior to the election. You ought to have been here for the last 2 to 3 weeks. You would have went nuts along with the rest of us. I actually had to redo the agenda for this convention the 4th time. Can you imagine having to redo something like that in the 4th time? To begin with, I'd allocated space on the agenda for the governor at 1:30 p.m. Monday, and then had advised him months in advance in order, and I talked to his secretary personally, went in his office, got his calendar out, and made sure that he marked off that date on the governor's calendar, whereby he wouldn't schedule anything in conflict. Then I get a cotton-picking letter back from the governor that he's sorry he can't address our convention on March the 22nd. And my letter clearly said on March the 20th. You know, what the devil goes on? So then I talked to the governor a couple of times, and he tells me, he says, well, I just can't be there. I've got a conference in Little Rock. I'm sorry. I'll try to drop in on you while the convention's going on. I said, okay, Governor, but if we'll try to work you in which your convenience, if you want to be on the program. Well, he had a meeting with a couple of senators a few days ago, And apparently they convinced him, they told him that, hell, this is one you ought to go to. You know, there's going to be several hundred folks out there, and most all of them voted for you. And we think you ought to go. So the next thing that happens is that I get a call, and they want me to put the Honorable Governor on Monday morning at 10:30. Now, have you had copies of the agenda yet?
No.
Still waiting on it. All right. All right. So we'll talk about the Honorable Mayor and what's going to happen next. We had a bus strike here in the city. It lasted several months. Some of you might have read a little something about it in the paper. But I played a role in trying to get it settled by simply getting the mediator together in a room with the negotiating committee and told him I had a few words, a message for him to deliver to that company. The rumor was out that the city of Jackson was going to hire scab drivers and that they were going to put policemen on these buses to ride herd on them. That I hoped that that rumor was false, but just in the event that it wasn't, that I wanted him to tell that company that they would have a bunch of empty buses running up and down the streets of the city of Jackson, because we had no intention whatsoever of seeing any such thing happen in this town. I had talked with the officers of the local union one Sunday afternoon, and I asked them to bring with them some of their black members who they could depend on. 80% of the customers on these buses are blacks. And they brought about, that local union is about 50-50 white and black, and they filled my office up that Sunday afternoon. And those blacks assured me that there'd be nobody getting on them buses and riding them under those conditions. So I felt like I had a pretty good ace in the hole, so I sent the message to the company. And I don't know whether it's had a role to play in settling or not. I kind of suspect it might have had, but the mayor was involved in it behind the scenes also. But anyhow, over that weekend they got it settled. And what I'm getting around to tell you about was my call from the mayor. The mayor calls me a few days later and he says, well, I was out and didn't get the message, didn't get in touch with him for the next day, and I called and caught him. Said, I understand you've been trying to catch me. He said, yeah. Says, now that you and I have been identified as having helped settle the bus strike, I want to know what you're going to do about helping get me reelected mayor of the city of Jackson. I said, hell, Mayor, that thing's a long ways off yet. You know, this is not what you're calling me up about. We'll be looking at that thing when the time comes, you know. One thing led on to another, and I said, incidentally, are you going to be able to welcome our convention to the city next month? And apparently he's thumbing through his calendar and he says, that's on the 29th, ain't it? I said, no, he's thinking about the CWA convention. He apparently thumbed on through his calendar. Well, he says, I can't be there on that date. And he said, I'm supposed to be in Alabama to open up the turkey season that day. I said, well, Mayor, you know, you just got through asking me what I was going to do to help you get reelected as mayor of the city when you run again. Now you're telling me you've got to go to Alabama to open up a turkey season on the day we're opening our convention, and I'd hate like hell to have to get up and tell the delegates that you can't be present because you're in Alabama hunting turkeys. I don't think this would help your cause very much. He says, well, let me give it a little more thought. and I'll get back in touch with you. So a few days later, he called me back and he says, well, I've got good news for you. He says, we've got an important city council meeting on a Tuesday that I've got to be at. And I will be able to welcome your delegation to the city on Monday morning. And bless Pat, after we got the agenda completed, and I believe this happened Friday, Tom, he calls and tells me because of a federal lawsuit in Gulfport of Biloxi involving the Jackson State situation, he's been subpoenaed to be at court on that date, and he won't be able to come.
Just that much less DDT.
I told him, I said, well, Mayor, I can understand that. And I told them this already, but I said, don't send one of them SOB commissioners over here. We don't even want one of them in the hall to welcome this delegation. If you can't been there, be there, you send a personal representative of yours to do the job. So Mr. Doug Shanks will be the man to represent the mayor for the welcome and address.
Sure he's not going to send Kelly? Commissioner Kelly?
We don't.
Before, the judge now for the decision.
I don't know. All I know is what he told me. All I know, what he told me. And all I know is that Mr. Doug Shanks has been assigned a task, and he's not a bad young man, Tom, and I met him. And I think he picked the right guy. You know, I'd much rather have him than Tom Kelly or Ed Cates. Matter of fact, if we had to have one of the two, I say to hell not have any of them, see? All right, the next question is the fact that the governor is going to be here somewhere around 10:30. You've got the agenda now, haven't you? Now, we've been kicking this thing around as to how we think we ought to handle this. George Johnson, of course, is going to open the convention up. Then the Reverend Clayton, I believe that's Jack, I believe that's your pastor, isn't it? Right. He'll give the invocation. And I've asked George to, instead of playing the national anthem or something like that, to lead the convention in the Pledge of Allegiance. I thought this would be the next best thing to do, you know what I mean? Now, I've been talking with Tom about how we handle this thing, and this is what we've come up with and what we'd like for you to consider. Ordinarily, when we open up a convention, we ask the full board to come up and sit on the rostrum at the beginning of the convention. But now that the governor is going to address the convention and will be here about 10:30, it's our thinking that about the best way to handle this situation is for George Johnson, the minister that's going to be giving the invocation, Mr. Shanks, and myself to be the only four people on the podium at that time. That the rest of you wait out in the foyer with Mr. Knight, and when the honorable governor arrives and when the proper time comes, and I shall give the signal to the sergeant at arms, and Mr. Thomas Knight will lead the delegation towards the head table with the honorable governor.
Is that the same Thomas Knight that declared the governor's job open last week?
Well, it's the same, we got a different one in the office. You know,
Now, if anybody's got any better ideas, I want to know about it. But we felt we need an escort committee. Well, I'm sure the cameras will all be here.
We're going to have a photographer here at that time.
Well, I think we'll have at least one TV station told me already they'll be here.
Our own personal thing.
Oh, our own person.
Go in
Well,
the
do you have-
collector's archives.
Do you have a seating arrangement then for the escort?
Well, what we'll do is have the chairs up there.
Oh, yeah.
We'll figure out how chair enough, of course, for everybody.
We'll seek the governor.
But we want everybody on the board, except myself, as part of the escort committee, to escort the honorable governor. And of course, if y'all want to draw straws and see whether somebody other than Tom leads the thing up there, it's all right with me.
We don't have to draw straws.
I think we can go along with that, all right.
Now,
I just don't know what that means, Tom
Now.
approves
Yeah.
the governor.
huh?
I just don't know if that means that Tom Knight approves that the, governor's mansion is now filled.
Well, now what Tom said really was this. Now,
The office, I mean.
y'all have got this thing completely out of context. Tom Knight said, if I remember correctly, that John Bell proved that we could get along without a governor. Now, some of you hadn't been around as long as Tom and myself. Some of you have been around longer. But this will be the first convention since I've been president that we've had a governor that we felt like inviting to address the convention. This will be a first. See? Now, of course, we might regret this before he goes out of office, but right now, we think, he ought to be here, and we ought to give him some special treatment.
Just like this.
There's comments on that, the last, later on.
Now.
Let Tom comment on it later.
Well, now, if you look at the agenda, and I'm the guy that's going to be on the spot in this one. Ordinarily in a convention, the way we usually do this is that to give me the gavel, I'll have a few words to say, and sometimes I say a few more than I ought to, and this time I'm going to have to really watch myself or I'll talk too much. Then we bring on Tom, let him get his say out of the way, and then he's free to see that everything functions properly from that point on. All right, but anyhow, you know what the procedure's been. So we've had to revise the agenda, you see. And we got another problem to deal with. And that's the fact that we thought that we'd have the Honorable Scoop Jackson here, and he canceled out at the last minute. Al Barkin led me to believe right up to the last minute he could be here. Things happening, he couldn't be here. Dan Powell's going to the hospital, he won't be here. And of course, a lot of you, I sure don't regret this too much. Yeah, I'd like to have some more water. But Dan is in pretty bad health. But the fact remains that I am going to have to speak behind the governor. And if you'll notice, it says response Claude Ramsey. And of course, my response is going to depend to a large degree on what the governor says. Now, I don't know what the governor is up to right now. Nobody else does. I haven't figured out what his program is yet, if he's got one. But,
We follow the governor out.
That's the best one yet.
you know, you raise a very interesting point.
Just remember to remind him of one thing, one of the main points of his platform when he was running to raise the capital income of this city.
I got a couple of things to remind him of. And I don't want to get bogged down too much here because we got quite a ways to go yet. We're going to get this Senate session taken care of.
The registration committee's not gonna be able to function at 5:30.
All right. Now, you guys have got to look at the agenda. You got to look at, you got the agenda, and you understand that you're to wait in the foyer Monday morning to the governor's shows, and if y'all don't want Tom to lead you, then pick you out another leader. Somebody has to be the front guy. And if you want the governor to follow him, that's all right with me. But if you want him to follow Diane Hawks, that's all right with me too.
He come here following Diane.
Now,
Diane
that's
brains in his
that's a job for the escort committee to work out. Now, in the afternoon, we're going to show the film The Broken Promises. This is a new film put out by the FLCIO about Richard Nixon and his broken promises. Al Barkin couldn't make it, so he's sending Joe Rourke, and Joe will have to run down and make a speech and turn around and run back the same day. Jack, you see convention business at 2:15? That's the place that we hope to bring up the constitutional amendment. That means that you're going to have to get your committee together probably during the lunch hour, especially on the one on changing the election of officers. Now, you can hold off on that other one till some other time if you want to. But the main one is whether or not we elect officers the same day we nominate. That's number one, I believe, isn't it?
That's right.
Huh?
You don't have any problem at all with that thing. You more of it.
All right, but anyhow, that convention business, that's what we want to do then. See? All right, behind that, I've asked Senator Ellis Boudron to address the convention, and I have specifically asked this gentleman, who I consider to probably be the best informed tax expert in the whole state, to discuss with you primarily this matter of uniform assessment on a statewide level, which we've been hollering about for years and years. Now, the senator tells me he'd like to talk for 15 or 20 minutes. And if you notice, I've allowed 40 minutes on the program. Then he'd like to have a question and answer period. So you might want to make some notes. If you got some pertinent questions you'd like to ask him, have them written down.
And he gonna be a candidate for congressman?
Well, he is a candidate for Congress, but I'd invited him to be on this program before he ever announced for Congress, so we ought to make that clearly understood. If anybody else running for Congress wants equal time, they'll have to be advised that this man was invited before he ever said anything about running for Congress. So he's invited here as chairman of the Senate Finance Committee. That's what he is. That's what he's being invited at.
We can better make that real clear. Don't somebody get interpretation we running.
Well, that will. And the senator himself told me that. He wanted to make it clear himself when I talked with him last.
That our friends have questions.
Perfectly clear. We talk about the same man. All right. We're going to finally get Tom Knight on the program then. And I guess he'll respond to everybody else that's went on before him.
Maybe some will come after.
Now after several telephone conversations all over the country, we finally got the Honorable Howard Samuel nailed down to address the convention that afternoon, James. And he'll be coming in Sunday night sometime.
8:35 tonight.
That's 8:35 tonight, and we need to get a delegation.
I already got a couple of our people go pick him up.
I think it'd be good if some of your people was to meet him and pick him up.
I got Sayer who works for him and a couple of business agents.
All right, we want to make sure there's somebody there to pick him up. And I've asked him to deal with a couple of subjects which are very pertinent this time. And of course, he's been very cooperative with us. I think all of you know that. He's a member of the National Cope Operating Committee. And I've told him not only to deal with the importance of this national election, but also I want him to have a few words to say about this import problem that's plaguing the hell out of a lot of people right now. That's putting a lot of industries out of business, really. Now, I thought I had Joe Keenan on the program.
Before you leave, Howard Samuel, I'd just like to point out, he's one of our international vice presidents. He happens to be the assistant president of our international union, actually. And he's also heads up our Sidney Hillman Foundation, our union labor department, and all our legislative work on the Washington level.
I was advised of all this, but I felt like
It's just for the board to know, I don't. the
But I felt
delegation,
like
don't-
that if I put it all down there, it would just be too.
Yeah, but he's also the assistant president of our.
He's
We
got all
25
kinds of
vice
titles.
presidents, but he's got all
Tom and I talked about this, and we finally decided just put him down as vice president,
That's
director
good
of
enough.
political education.
That's
About
good
me.
enough.
All right. Then, of course, we'll have announcements and introduction of guests and try to recess around 4:30 p.m. Now, before you leave that page,
Don't want to get him like Victor used to do there when you go introduce him, he hands you that list, you have to read off all the committees he's chairman of, it takes longer than reading his introduction off the stuff.
yeah, I made one of them one time when Raymond Oliver had to introduce Vic, and I'm telling you, it was something out of this world, that introduction was. But I'll assure you one thing, that I won't spend that kind of time on introducing anybody. We got several people on the program that you could spend 30 minutes on introducing. Now, sometime during this convention, and we want your opinion on this, we've got to have a caucus of 3 congressional districts. We got 3 congressmen retiring. Palmer's retiring, won't be running for re-election. Griffin is retiring, won't be running for re-election. And Abernathy is retired. We're going to have 3 contests. And the deadline for qualifying is what? April 7th. That means that we don't have much time.
Election June the 6th.
That's the primary, unless, of course, go back to the old primary. And we have to operate under the assumption that it will come off on June. We have got to get a caucus of these people to do one thing, primarily. To set a date and a place for meeting of representatives within each district. At which time, with the exception of the 5th congressional district, we'll have to organize a committee to function. A committee that will interview the candidates, and then we'll make a report back to a convention of the local union delegates in that congressional district to make a decision. That's the procedure we follow. And the 5th, we still have what you might refer to as a skeleton organization. They quit paying dues, but they keep the organization together, so the problem is a little bit easier there.
You got a structure, not an organization.
Got a structure. I assume, James, that we can meet in the Amalgamated Coal Hair Workers Hall. So what we'll have to do is set a date for everybody to meet, and then set up the committee to do the screening. Then, after we do that, we'll set the mate to come back and make the report.
Even though they quit paying dues, they're not completely out of funds, they still got a little postage money.
Right.
left over.
Right. So the other 2 districts, Tom and I have been talking about it, trying to find a central location. Appears that Macomb is about the central part of which is now the 4th, used to be the 3rd, they renumbered them, And at Winona would probably be about the central part of the 2nd. So what we've got to do actually at this convention, and this shouldn't take long, I think we could do this just by asking all of the delegates from these 3 districts to remain after we adjourn Monday, and we'll just get them to give us the dates, the place to have a meeting.
Yeah, that would be all right, just to determine the meeting, what I was thinking out there, if this resolution passes at 2 o'clock on Monday, a lot of organizations are gonna be caucusing Monday, just had a convention to determine who they're gonna run. Could be nominated the following morning.
We gotta get them while we're in the convention hall.
But if it's just for determination of place to meet, I think that'd be fine.
It ought not take long, should it?
No, of course, the field, they can meet there in our hall unless they choose to meet someplace else, which is all right with us then, but they're welcome to use it.
If we do this, I don't see why we ought to take over 10 or 15 minutes to do what we gotta do. All we gotta do is set a date and a place. That's all, a date and a place. We got the place and the field.
Right.
All we need, I'll tell you what you do.
I can talk to VC.
You get with VC and y'all get together on a time,
Right,
and I'll take care of that.
and they just announce.
And you just announce it. Then all we'll have to do is get a place and a time for the second and the fourth. Do we have anybody here from down in southwest Mississippi? Well, we got you here from Jackson. What do you think? You think McComb's the place to hold it or not? Or should it be in Jackson?
I believe that.
Better participate. I know we went to Macomb one time, back when Griffin ran the first time, we had very poor attendance.
We talking about Tyler Town, is that property?
Yeah.
How about Jackson Union Hall?
What Union Hall? And whose hall? Jack's Hall?
They got a good hall out there.
What would be the date, whatever we decide?
Let's
The
go.
Constitution of the Fifth District Cope Organization says that within 21 days after the deadline to qualify, they shall have.
You know.
And have recommendation. I couldn't remember.
Earliest date after the qualifier.
You know what we might ought to do? You know what we might ought to think about doing? I think we got the authority to do it. I think this board's got the authority to do it. I think we can set the time and the place ourselves and avoid this caucus. And just announce the time and the place of the meeting.
I think you gotta do.
That serves the purpose.
Well, let's get that out of the way.
I would suggest the first Saturday of the deadline.
All right.
Nobody else got a better one, I'm open to it.
First,
I'd like to ask a question.
yeah.
In your opinion, you know a little more about it than I do, do you think the courts might, go back to the old way of election? Now, reason I'm asking this, we have a man in the second district, gonna be in the second district and announced. Then he turns around and pull down because of, the loaded, he wouldn't be able to get around.
Yeah.
And he said that he's gonna, if they wasn't changed, why he would be again.
It's Buck.
Yeah.
Let me interject a new wrinkle in this thing here. Now, I may be wrong, but in all of the conversation that was had about the open primary versus the old primary situation, nothing was ever said about the congressional primary. Now, I'm not so sure, and I'm no lawyer, I'm no authority on the Constitution, and nobody, including this clown of an attorney general over here, knows really what the election laws are that we're supposed to operate by. But I'm not so sure that the congressional primary is really involved in this. Now, we're talking about altogether something else, you see. The old primary is always in August. I mean, our general election. You see, several years back, they separated the congressional primary from that and set them up in June. And I'm not so sure, even if the Justice Department in Washington should go back and review and give a so-called approval to the so-called open primary, that has any bearing on what we're talking about right now. See?
Well,
This is altogether something else.
except from this angle, and this might have been part of the question. You know, the legislature has just redistricted the congressional district. If the court reviews that and don't let it stand, then,
Now, that's something
then
else.
we're in a mess
Yeah.
from another angle. don't even know what district.
True, so this could hold up the election if nothing else.
Well,
But
you
I
know,
think
this,
we have to go
we
straight
done went
ahead.
through one nightmare with the state situation, might well find ourselves.
We can't
Well,
give
aren't
up
there
on this
protests,
thing.
aren't there court suits filed on this? Didn't the NAACP or somebody file a
Somebody
protest
has, I
for this
think.
Deidre
We talked
redistrict?
about it, I don't
I
know.
don't know whether it's actually been filed. Well, let me tell you this.
You set the meeting, and then if the court changes it,
Well, we've got to set,
we can't wait for the court.
all right, let me tell you this. On the 8th of April, the state Democratic the state Democratic Convention reconvenes. That's on a Saturday. That's on the 8th of April when these two groups are supposed to make their report on what they've been able to do in their negotiations.
Let me ask the question, does all these three, does just one of them have a, district coach?
Just one, fifth. 2 and 4 don't have one.
Well, you gotta organize it.
Set up a meeting.
James, don't you think that you and Smitty and some of the other folks in that 5th district, if Tom and I will prepare the questionnaires for you, we'll run them off here. Don't you think you could go ahead and call a meeting down there and get your interview committee set up and begin to interview candidates without Tom and I?
Well, that's already provided for, their structure and their time schedule set forth in that constitution.
We're set our own constitution.
Well, what I'm getting at is we got 2 more to deal with. Now, if James can handle that one along with Smitty,
Smitty is chairman, we'll work that.
then we might set up the other 2 on the same date. And you can handle one and me the other.
How about this, how about, I hate to go over it, who did the chairman,
Chairman in our district, V.C. Smith from the state maker.
I hate to go over it, chairman, you know, y'all wanna elect you on that group, I think you should order.
Well, I won't do anything without talking to Smitty, he'll really control the meeting. This is
Y'all will get together though on it, but I mean, you just pass on to him the board's thinking.
Right.
That's all.
Well, then the other 2 now, wouldn't Tom, have the authority to do state group chairman, active temporary chairman, elected, call a meeting, I think we're this way, let them.
Well, what we got to do because of the time thing is that if James and Smitty can handle the 5th, and don't have to have one of us, see, then we can do all 3 of them at the same date. Now,
But the only problem, Claude, and I guess I should have thought of this before I suggested the first Saturday. I don't believe we can do it that right there, because already in the 5th district, I've heard about 20 different names that's gonna run. And it's gonna be a long interview process to set up meetings with that many candidates and talk to them.
Well, that's
And you really,
district.
and you're really not gonna know who the final ones are until the day they
maybe
finish
you ought to do it,
qualifying.
maybe you ought to do it by mail to start with.
Because I already have heard at least 12 names, and some of them are fairly prominent people that take a long time to interview, judges and so on, you know, this was already announced officially down there in the field. I just think it's hard to account, it hadn't brought one out.
What you
I
might
think
have
if we got it by mail, we'd have the answers in writing for a record too.
I tell you what's gonna have to be now, we've had considerable experience in this, and this is what bothers me, is the short period of time we got from April 7th to June 6th.
Listen,
Now, here's what I think we're gonna have to do. Now, the 5th district got the money, as Jim pointed out, I think enough to make some telephone calls. Now, somebody's gonna have to be authorized to get on the phone and call these candidates, and then follow it up with a letter at the same time, and start scheduling these. And then state cope's gonna have to provide the same thing with the other 2 districts. It's gonna have to be a dual effort by phone and by letter in order to get them scheduled. Cause this is really gonna be something, I'm telling you.
I think what we're gonna have to do is let DC and James, get their date, they can probably do it today, and I think DC, they know what we're gonna do.
Then he's on the registration committee, we'll be talking.
They can get together, and I think we're gonna have to do that thing flexible, enough not get y'all in no bind on this other deal.
But I see a
You don't wanna
tremendous
lose no
problem
time,
on
but
interviews.
you still don't wanna, get too quick on that thing, you know? Maybe that's play that by ear.
What time is that election on?
June 6th.
I
think we just meet each one of the candidates and give them 30 minutes and take 3 days, and the list looks like it's gonna car right down.
Everybody, and grandma too, running up there.
Looks like the thing we need to do is select them.
Actually, we got about 2 months to work with, is what we got.
Well, on these other two, what I'm talking about, of course, I'm not involved in either one of them. Looks like we'll just kind of select the place, man, and let y'all handle it from now on out. Get your meeting set up when you can.
Let me ask Marvin. Marvin, there's E.M. Brother Grantham, Everett, let me ask you, you live in Greenville, Marvin lives over Columbus.
Right.
Don't you all think fairness to everybody someplace about like Winona is about the best we can do in that second district?
Right, exactly the same. If it's just
I
my
think-
relatives out of Montgomery County, they wouldn't have anybody left, you know.
I think we can make arrangements, get them amalgamated all, right, don't you?
You got it right now.
For whatever we need, that, and if we won't hold them, we'll get out in that parking lot there.
I think it'll hold, you can get 100 people. Yeah.
All right, Jack, can we, hold the fourth meeting in your hall?
Yeah, when are we talking about?
All right, let's talk about dates.
It's committed already on something.
That's what I know, Reed, we need to talk about dates. Should it be in the daytime or at night?
Are we talking about Saturday?
I think it'd be a mistake to have it on the 8th.
I think that's too early. You wouldn't be ready to report.
The following Saturday, give you another week to get,
15th.
Actually, Carl, I don't wanna interrupt you, but you got a strange problem with the other districts. In fact, you're gonna have to have 2 meetings in place of one.
We
You've
will.
got no organization, you're gonna have to have an initial meeting to form your organization and
Right.
get your screening committee.
Right.
And then your final meeting to report on the candidates, cause
Right.
it looks like you got 2 meetings, not
We
one.
have,
Now,
that's
let me
exactly
ask y'all-
right.
Let me ask you all this, now, does this board, and this is a shortcut now, and don't misconstrue the meaning of this, I'm not trying to leave, we won't keep this a democratic organization, but does this board want to take it upon itself to authorize us to select a representative committee in the 2nd and the 4th districts and get underway with this, with these interviews, and then call a convention? You do this is a shortcut, and you only have one convention.
I make a motion, we authorize.
second motion.
You everybody understand what I'm saying?
You get the motion?
No, I don't.
State the motion again.
That the state AFL-CIO will be instructed to appoint or select a representative interview committee, thoroughly representative of the labor movement in that particular congressional district, and proceed to schedule interviews with the candidates, with that committee, and then when that committee has met with them and had the time to sit down and evaluate it, then call a convention and make the report. And that leaves out one meeting.
Exactly what I said. That was my motion, exactly.
That satisfy everybody? That'll cut out one meeting. And we'll try to set this one up in your hall, Jack, we'll talk with you. And I think probably George Johnson would be the logical chairman for the group, wouldn't you? All right. Okay, any more discussion on that motion? Not all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carried and so ordered. So we'll have to make some contacts. All right, let me see if I can get through this thing. The first, something I'd better do before some of these things here I can hold off till the new board meets. Those of you that are chairman of committees that'll be handling resolutions. Jack, you've got 1 and 2. And of course, Rainey, you write these down because Bob Thomas is not here. Get you a piece of paper, something to write on.
Listen, for my records, Mr. Rainey, Ransom, and Norman, y'all, are you representing the board? I can't remember. All 3 of you think the board?
All right, you've got resolutions number 3, number 4, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, and number 10.
Any left over?
The Resolutions Committee, who is chaired by Mr. Williams, who is not here, and the primary reason for having Mr. Williams chairman of this committee, for the benefit of those of you that know Mr. Williams, is that he has had some conversation with Tom and myself, mostly by telephone, about these unaffiliated locals. And he has authored a resolution on this question that you'll find in your kits. And I felt it would be good to have him chairman of that committee, where he could thoroughly express himself on the subject. So that's the reason he's been named chairman of that resolutions committee. And now that committee, see who we got. Well, I thought I had a board member on that committee, but I ain't. Well, I'll have to pronounce this in the convention anyhow. They got 5, 11, 12, and 13. See, Ray, that's the reason I told you that you're going to have to separate into about 3 committees, because you had so many in your committee.
You talking about Billy Williams?
So my Billy Williams is chairman of the Resolutions Committee. You'll have resolutions number 5, 11, 12, and 13. And of course, I'll make this announcement after in the convention when we appoint the committees and get some of the preliminaries out of the way. All right. We got a problem.
Just one?
Another problem. Who should be at the head table for the banquet?
Boy, that boy is sloppy to bride today.
Well,
I'm just
we'll get to that. We'll get that
find
next.
out the shape of that table like they did over in Paris, and that was,
The shape of it, and how many of the seats?
he seats and 5.
Well, you see the way it's going. Well, we'll just have to leave some of this stuff for the new board that I got down here. All right. Now, we've talked about this thing and kicked it around all kinds of fashions. We're going to have all kinds of dignitaries present. We're going to have about 130 members of the legislature. We're going to have several state officials. Of course, we're going to have Clower as the after dinner speaker.
You know, Paul, I don't have any feeling about it, but we're gonna get some criticism from our membership using that guy, cause he's strictly anti-union and everybody knows it.
Clower?
Yeah.
Well, he
Worked
said he
for Mississippi Chemical Company as one of their salesmen, that's where he started, for Owen Cooper's organization, that's where he makes his living.
That's right.
One of the first things he told me in my conversation with
I've
him
already
is
heard some comments.
that he lets me know he's a union member himself.
He may be, but that's who he works for. Fact of business, I've been told he was their personnel director and a part of management of that company.
Charlotte, I think you're talking about that front table there. Just my opinion on the thing is that, you're in the home and, you get speakers and, maybe, I understand William Winter's gonna be here for the banquet. Told me last night he was. And, they have him as chairman of the committee. And, have his help. Yeah.
All right, let me tell you what we've narrowed it down to. Now, we've talked about all kinds of arrangements, about a second table. One table here and another one down here. Now, when you do that, you're gonna run the risk risk of offending somebody else and feels that he ought to be on at least the second of the front table. So we narrowed it down to what we consider the bare minimum. That's Tom and his wife, me and my wife, Dr. Davis with the Baptist, you remember the old doctor, who has agreed to give the invocation, and his wife, Clower, who says he'll be by himself, at least the secretary said. Senator Perry said he'd be by himself. He's pro tem of the Senate. Lieutenant Governor Winter, who will be present, but he's not too sure whether his wife will be there. Now, we also felt, somebody left me a note here, and I assume it was our good secretary, we might ought to think about having Hank Brown also at the head table, since he is hosting the happy hour.
I put him at my table.
Somebody left me a note, what about Hank Brown at the head table?
I didn't do it, it wasn't me, because I had him playing to sit at our table.
Somebody put me a note on my pad, said, what about Hank Brown at the head table?
He's gonna be the one with all the food, everybody's gonna try to get him at their table.
Stay in the bill, set him up there.
Now, here it is, right here, if you want to read it. Who wrote it? Found this on my desk. And I come back in from...
Certainly not my right.
Sure ain't mine.
Ain't none of them gonna claim it,
I know
so
that
they-
one boy is gonna have to accept this responsibility.
Who?
The other secretary.
Well,
Around here, she'll have to take the
He
burden.
will, Tommy.
she'll put it off.
American Life Insurance Company.
He's the former president of the state fed in Texas. He's a hell of a fine guy, and I plan on inviting him to address the convention anyhow. And we're going to provide him with a little time on the program. He's a heck of a speaker.
Hank might have read that note. He had his secretary send that note, huh?
Well, anyhow, we had quite a little conversation off and on with him on the telephone about whether or not he slept with his wife or not. But
That we've never been able to establish.
we found, after a series of conversations, we found out he wouldn't have his wife with him. I said, well, don't you plan on me trying to provide anybody for you to sleep with? So we'll just assume that you're going to sleep by yourself.
That brings up another little matter. Before we get around to him, we sent in 3 delegates to our local here in Jackson, and the union got them a room up here, and I get a letter from Claude that says, we have made reservations for all of the board members except those who live in Jackson. So my delegates have come in and got a room that I hadn't. I feel kind of slighted. So Tom told me that everything would be all right, and I could just take my pick of any number of executive board and share a room with them.
Now, wait a minute, Ray. I didn't say that exactly. I told you that I would see what I could do. I'd try to take care of it.
Well, the only thing,
Well, I was fixing to ask for volunteers.
well, the only thing I got to say,
Decipher all this off here.
the only thing I got to say,
Double, triple time.
the only thing I got to say about that, I don't want you trying to sleep with me.
Oh, mercy.
I saw All in the Family last night.
Did you?
That was a rerun.
Yeah.
All right. What do you think? Anybody got any ideas about the dang head table?
I got one question.
What?
See, we covered the, Senate and all that, about
Speaking of the
I
house,
know how you
is that
feel
gonna be
about
that?
the house.
Speaker of the House sent me word he attended nothing. I got him scratched out. That his policy was he attended nothing.
That's great.
Is there any chance that the governor's gonna be here for the banquet?
No, the governor can't be here for the banquet. Here's a bunch of people I had listed for the table that will be on the program. Robin Johnson and his wife, Evelyn Gandy, and the governor. and the speaker. Perry and the lieutenant governor's the only two outside of Clower and the preacher that'll be on the program that will be there. That leaves the list. If we do it this way, and this will probably be the least, and do you think we ought to have Hank up there or not? Hank at the head table? You don't think so?
There you have it, Hal, Hank.
I had asked for him, I don't know who set that note.
I know what the deal is, well, let's find out what Hank Brown, what is about Hank Brown.
I'm under the impression that primarily this banquet's for the purpose of us being with the legislature.
Right.
I think in that order that those people at that head table should be members of that legislature.
Our elected state.
Right, all right, and it's, all right, I don't think any member of the House of Representatives or the Senate would be offended that if you put those top state officials, President Pro Tem, which I'm putting a little prejudice there, at the head table, it was the Lieutenant Governor, and then, of course, your, gentleman that's gonna give the invitation. I don't believe anybody else would be offended.
Right.
And
Right.
since this is a primary purpose for that
Right.
banquet,
Right.
and I just feel like it couldn't be done any other way.
Well, this was my thinking on it, in a
And
nutshell.
I don't believe that anybody in the House of Representatives would be offended if they were not like that.
Right.
Do you remember the seating that we had at our banquet?
Yeah, and I don't know more of
You
that.
don't approve of that.
No. Takes too long to go through all them introductions and everything. So what, CWA banquet, you remember? I'm talking about, you know, you got your head table, and you got your second table, and then you go around, you introduce all of these people, and it takes 45 minutes to introduce them
Well, you
all.
aren't gonna introduce these 130 members, are you?
No, we'll be 2 days if we do.
Right.
No, we're just going to acknowledge their
I
presence.
didn't mean that, I meant the setup of it, I didn't mean particularly the, introduction part, I'm talking about the setup that we had.
We didn't go along with that.
Yeah, you don't like that either.
I had already proposed.
We'd tried that out, and we decided it'd be a problem.
Okay, well, then take those top state officials, your President Pro Tem and your Senate, and your,
Tom and my wife,
Lieutenant Governor, yeah, well, yeah, I'm forgetting.
Tom and my wife, and me and Tom's wife.
Well, whichever you prefer.
We find it works much better with the legislature if the members are from back in their own county will, meet legislators and take them to their table and sit.
All right,
I
all right,
remember you or
Elect them
Tom.
and vote.
all right, is it agreed then? Is it agreed?
We're gonna do it if you don't let us meet.
Is it agreed? All right, now we're gonna tell you the rest of this thing now after this. Tom and his wife, me and my wife, Davis and his wife, Clower, B.G. Perry, and Lieutenant Governor Winter. And Winter told me he'd let me know Tuesday when he addressed the convention whether his wife would be with him or not, and that'll be sufficient. That leaves us 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, possible 10. She can't come. She can't make it.
Well, I said any top officials.
Well, that's what we had in mind, was the top official.
Well,
All right, the general idea behind it all is for the delegates to sit and talk to the members of the legislature.
we can't do that if they're gonna.
That's the reason for having it like this. All right, Ms. Phillips, we'll talk now about the arrangement.
Well, you'll have to get in the kit, we've got all the local unions set up by congressional district. The, registration committee chairman will have to, work with the sergeant in arms and, so that they'll know, we'll have.
Set up by congressional district, is what
Right.
you call it.
The tables arranged.
The tables will be
Tables will be
set,
marked, all of
we'll have a card on them, by congressional
What's in the
district.
kit
Oh,
that tells
what's
us
in the
about
kit
that?
for each
Oh, the
delegate
map, you
from
saying the map? What you're going about, that map?
The map for, plus a list
But
of
that's not
all
in the
local
kit, is
unions.
it?
That's not in the kit, is it?
Not
Not
in the
That's what
kit.
it's supposed to be.
No,
Find the
that's
copy.
extra material, extra material, let me get it.
These,
for
that,
you.
you have a copy.
in the kit.
Yeah.
What have you,
I'm looking at yours. How about give me 5 minutes?
Well, we got 180 local unions affiliated. We've divided them up into 5 congressional
5
districts.
minutes, I'll be back.
You got 'em,
We've
Brooke?
allowed a certain number of tables per congressional district, according to the delegates they've already sent into district. or according to how many members we know they've got. We've also separated the entire city and house by congressional district. We know how many go to each congressional district, and a certain, we've
So
allowed
you're
to
saying
be,
the legislators and the delegates
will be
be seated by
assigned by
congressional?
congressional district. We're not seated at a certain table or
But
with a
just
certain
in that
person,
section.
but in a district. The guests, international reps, and all will be allowed or be told to fill in any spot,
Say, any place.
because some may come from one district and not come from another, but, the guests can mix as they see fit.
That makes sense.
We'll just have to do the best we can with it. You know, it's gonna be a big job, it will.
Anybody, when he hands you this, they'll find which district they're listed under. They're in
All right. All right, let's see if we can't rush on you and get a couple of other things out of the way while Tom's going after the information. We're flat running out of time. Let's get your opinion or decision out of you on a couple of things. Number one, it's our feeling that we should not charge the international representatives the full $12 initiation fee. That if they want to attend the banquet, they ought to pay the $7 for the banquet. Now, is that agreeable to everybody?
In other words, you're saying there'd be no registration fee if they attend as a guest unless they're gonna attend the banquet. Is that
Right.
what you're saying?
Right.
Question, will any of them be voting delegates?
No.
If they're delegates, they're not a guest.
But if they come as a delegate from their local, then they'll have to pay the restoration.
That was the point of my.
I don't know if anybody falls in that category, but if it does happen that way, then is that agreeable?
I think that's fair. It'd be a pity to charge.
No.
Some people working,
All right.
won't be here Monday, but won't stay over for the banquet because they're gonna get.
All right,
paid for their
all
job.
right. The other part of the question now. The other part is this. If we have delegates that want to attend the convention, I got one here that we will hold over for the new board. That's about this matter of conventions during the legislature session and all that, but this can wait till the next board meeting. But we gotta work out something better than what this thing's been this time, and I got some ideas, but there ain't no need in using time on that now. The thing we need to decide now, Brother Clark, who is chairman of the entertainment committee, is whether or not we're gonna have a dance that night. After the banquet. Now, let me tell you this. Let me give you this little bit of information. I talked to Betty Shanks, the secretary of CWA, and she advises me that they had Jerry Lane, whose name is White Short, and his band is their band for their banquet during their convention last month, and they did a good job. But I told Miss Shanks, I said, well, this local union is not affiliated with this organization, and I'll be doggone if it ain't going to take a lot of convincing to convince me to invite a non-affiliated local union to play music at this organization's convention. Now, if Mr. Lane is willing to affiliate his local union, and if this board wants to have a dance,
1 year in advance.
I would say he ought to pay at least a year's dues, and if we hire him, then good. Now, if we don't do that, then do you still want to dance? And if you do, how do you want to go about providing the music?
last year, I understood there was a few problems resolved around the dance.
That's right, yeah, a lot of them.
Why should we invite problems if it can be eliminated?
The people that wanna dance will go where they're having one, and the ones that don't.
Well, we had one convention in this town, we took a show of hand, we started to get ready to have one, and everybody decided they didn't want one. Most of them went out to the Embers or somewhere, and they decided they'd rather go.
But that's what I say.
We done made arrangements for a jukebox and had to cancel that out. So we want to just close it out with the banquet then. This will be the end of it. That solves the problem. That suits me fine, 'cause I don't dance anyhow. Ain't no problem for me. Me and Edwards are getting too old to dance. And Taylor.
I sure do love to hold somebody while they dance, so.
I've got a band coming, but they didn't bring their instruments, I don't imagine.
Town's full of places.
There'll be plenty of places to go dance for those that want to.
Yes, you wear your heart out.
Well, we'll just let Brother Clark then announce anybody that would like to dance, he can direct them to the Embers Club.
I make a motion.
Whether they get in or not.
You make a motion, Mike?
They're getting it out, they're getting it.
Let's let the lady make a motion.
I make a motion that we do not plan to have a dance following the banquet.
Your second of that? Any discussion?
No, yes. I don't know, maybe we better not stick our neck out on that, maybe you better get it up on the floor tomorrow.
And we got to Biloxi, last time, and everybody wanted to have a dance,
Yeah.
and they chipped in and hired a band
They
to have a
get
dance.
criticized us getting charged for
Then they
them not
all
being able to
criticize
have a
the
dance if they
band
wanted
now.
one.
Then they all back.
You're gonna get it either way you go, I think you ought to let the delegates out there stick their own neck out.
Will you have time to make your arrangements?
Well, the only thing would need to be tied in is just have a band available, and we could get them,
Well, you gotta have it before the week. You gotta sell tickets, you gotta know what
All right,
band, what price.
take up collection, they don't want to
I'll
have
see
it.
if we can get an affiliated band on that short notice. Do we have an affiliated band?
Oh, no, never had been.
This group's never been affiliated with.
They're good neighbors if you do all the neighbors.
That's right.
I agree with you on that deal, 100% ought to be affiliated, but I don't think we ought to stick our neck out there and we can't do it.
All right, so you want to put it to the question then, or let's see, when can we do that? Just before we recess for lunch?
Anytime tomorrow.
Dispose of it early.
You're gonna have it like that, that's the earliest possible.
What are you gonna do with it if they vote to have one, and you can't get a union band?
Go get one.
Jukebox? Did that one time.
They do that to the best you can, if they wanna have them, I don't accept what you'll have to get on that short of notice.
Well, I explained to them what the problem is, that the band is, in this town is not affiliated, and the feeling of the board, we ought not engage in a non-affiliated band.
I've talked with them.
Chip off enough money to get them to mention.
Yes, that's the thing.
Yes, sir, I think they should know exactly the situation on the thing before they vote.
Okay, I shall make the note.
Isn't there another problem that, let me ask a question,
Yeah,
Mr.
oh,
Chairman.
definitely, yeah.
In connection with that, I think we, CWA have run into this here in this hotel. Isn't there, if you have a dance here, and, you have a table arrangement set up, and people bring their own bottles in, isn't there a flat hotel charge?
Yeah.
That they
Yeah.
charge,
Yeah.
called a cartage fee?
Yeah.
Well, I was told at one time that we gonna have this thing in the Olympic room,
The banquet is.
I was told one time that they had discontinued dancing in that Olympic room on account of that's a suspended floor.
The dance will be in the Victor Room if we have one. The happy hour incidentally will be in the Victor Room.
The dance would have to be there too, because they don't have much
Right.
me in the Olympic room anymore on account of that swaying floor.
All right, so anyhow, if there is a dance, it'll be in the Victor instead of the Olympic. The banquet will be in the Olympic, all of the convention sessions will be in the Victory Room. Now, they say they can get the tables cleared out in time for the happy hour beginning at 6, and I'm going to tell them to close the bar at 6:45. Get their last drink at 6:45 and be in that place over there promptly at 7. Right? Okay? Now, there's a couple of items I've got on here, but I think they can wait. We've already, huh? Well, this is going to be the final question. We already had one man announce that he's not going to be a candidate for the board.
Could we confer him and he's not talking about Joe?
Are you sure?
How do you put that in there?
Turn this thing up.
Turn it up loud.
Now, let me ask him.
So it pick up your money.
All right. Okay. Tom raises a good question. Tom raises a very good question. There'll probably be several delegates present at this convention who might be a colonel on the governor's staff or a colonelette on the governor's staff. Question is, should they be included in the escort committee?
We got two that I know that are scheduled to be delegates, one man and one woman that are colonels and colonelettes on Walter's staff.
He probably don't even know him, does he?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
if I might say so, since this is strictly FLCIO party, I don't see any particular need of going afield to have anybody else connected with this escort committee. That's my personal.
I agree with Marvin. I think, that, you could have 50 people come up out of the audience that you don't even know anything about it.
Yeah.
Well, the question needed to be raised.
A lot of people wouldn't understand if a couple of people got up out of the crowd and come.
Well, and how do you distinguish as the officer of the council from the colonels and the colonelettes? A lot of our delegates don't even know the officers. So
Okay. All right, so we'll do it like we originally planned.
Wanted to put that cat up there and see if
Ah.
he can skin it, you know?
I'd like for you to, I know that you are going to be very busy and you're going to be having to have caucuses and everything else, but I'd like to know before we leave from here, outside of Rainey and Dee's, huh?
They have an audit report in their kit, and this needs to be explained to them, because they don't know what the situation is. They've got one.
You put the kit,
Yeah, they've got one.
they're the only ones.
They are the only ones got one.
All right,
Get one.
all right, so we ought to talk about that a little bit. We've had a problem in the past with a doggone audit being scattered around on the table. So in the kit, we've got a form.
No, it'll be passed out
Be passed out
to other delegates.
to the delegates. Anybody that wants a copy of the audit can write us and we'll send it to them on request. Now, the reason for this is very simple. We're not trying to hide anything from anybody, but we don't want our enemies to get their hands on the audit. Tom, at every convention has to go around and watch them tables to pick stuff up to make sure the wrong thing ain't left on the table. So we felt if there's anybody who really wanted a copy of the audit, they could fill that form out, send it in to us, and we'll send them a copy of it.
One per local.
One per local.
Go into the local union office.
Does anybody object to that procedure?
It's a good way.
Okay?
All the citizens of the board are the only ones that got that.
All right. Brother Rain is not going to be a candidate. Anybody else outside of Brother Edward?
I don't think I'm going to.
You don't think you will?
No, I don't think so. I have some problems with it.
You had problems?
Of course, I mean, if it was necessary, I could, but might be that I might not be able to leave sometime.
Okay. All right. We know that Brother Edwards is going to retire. And I told him before we adjourned, we'd give him an opportunity to have a word or two to say. And now, let me first, before I do that, does any of you have anything that you think we need to bring up in this meeting that we haven't already covered?
At what time is the Education Scope Legislative Committee going forward? I don't see it on this agenda.
On the agenda, you got convention business in several places.
Mr. Bailey, I really don't think they give that much thought. We didn't have that much time. We was worrying with the governor. Or where he.
Wherever it says convention.
Just wherever it says.
Most of it's gonna come on the afternoon of the third day.
It's gonna be a problem.
It's a matter of necessity.
I thought it looked like it was, from
Now, if something happens, somebody counsels out, and we've got a committee ready to report, then we'll see if we can get that out of the way. But you can see what a mess we've been in with trying to get all this into the program. If I'll say this, if we've got time, after Jack makes his report, first thing we have to do is get the report of Credentials Committee, partial report. Then we've got to get the rules adopted before we can do any business. Hopefully, by that time, Jack will be able to report at least Resolution 1. See?
I'll call my committee together just as soon as the Credentials Committee reports. We might even leave convention then. Otherwise, lunch is gonna be about the only time we have.
During the lunch hour. Well, let's see, I've got you down at 2:15. See, this will be right behind Joe Roy.
About 11 something, hadn't you?
11:45.
Yeah.
Got you at 11:45. That'll be a partial report.
Keep it for
And Marvin, you be ready with your rules report as soon as he gets through with this partial credentials report. Okay? Now, if we've got any time, JW, after Jack makes his report, before Senator Beaudron comes on, we'll try to get a couple of resolutions out of the way. See? If you're ready. If not, as a matter of necessity, we're going to have to do it the afternoon of the last day. Well, let's see, we got a 10:30 convention business after the nomination of officers on Tuesday. We can get some of it out of the way then. Let's see, we've got, depends on how long it takes to nominate officers. Is how much time we got. But the earliest possible time, outside of the time that Jack's got, is 10:30 on Tuesday morning, before Evelyn Gandy makes her speech. See?
y'all know more of these than I do. How about telling me who is good for the subcommittee on education and culture?
Well, I would, let's see. Of course, you ought to be chairman of the legislative thing yourself. We need to have, Thomas could be Cope. Wait a minute. We got Darla Petit on that. She's been active in the Water Valley area with Amy. Done a good job up there. Why don't you make her chairman of the subcommittee on Cope? Darla Petit. Yeah, we need to get some women involved in this thing.
How about Bob on education? That's kind of what he's involved in.
All right, put him on education. All right, and you take legislative. Then y'all have to sort out the resolution, decide which group's gonna. Let's see, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Well, you'll have to have 6 on one and 5 on the rest of it. That would be the best way to do it. See? Okay? just about to slip my mind. I don't know how many of you know it. Lige Williams passed away a few days ago.
I didn't know it till this morning.
Matter of fact, he's being buried today. And, of course, we lost another good friend, who some of you know, and Don Ellinger, who is the Director of Political Education for the Machinists Union, who at one time was with the National Democratic Committee, was a good, close personal friend of mine who always gave us a hand when we was in trouble down here. He died just about 2 weeks ago. But Tom called me up and thought we ought to send this wire to Mrs. Williams, and we want you to hear it. Go ahead and read it, Tom.
This was sent yesterday morning, 9:45. Shocked and saddened at passing of our friend and brother. Working people and all who knew him have suffered a great loss. Impossible at this time for us to be there for funeral. The labor movement in Mississippi joins us in expressing sincere sympathy to you and the family. Claude Ramsey, President, Thomas Knight, Secretary Treasurer, Mississippi A.L. Tennessee House.
Good.
Okay. All right, I thought that during the convention, when we find the appropriate time, that we'd ask the delegates to stand in a minute of silent prayer in the memory of both Lige Williams and Don Ellinger. Is that okay? We'll try to find the appropriate time for that. All right, Brother Edwards, you said you'd like to have a word to say, friend.
All right.
The floor is now yours.
Thank you. I asked Claude for a few minutes to talk to you along with personal lines. As you know, probably know, as of last July, I retired from 38 years with the telephone. Since then, I didn't know life could be so sweet. I had an occasion to purchase an Airstream travel trailer, and my wife and I spent 2.5 months during the middle of the winter season in Florida. We, as far as I know, we took in most all of the prime interest places of Florida. We saw lots of beautiful places, met a lot of wonderful people. But primarily what I wanted to talk to you about was how far the labor movement has come in Mississippi since I first became a union member. I became a union member in Mississippi in 1931. In 1936, the Supreme Court of the United States threw out of existence an old Southern Bell Company-dominated association of where we paid 10 cents a month dues. Out of that 10 cents a month, why, we received big steak dinner about twice a year, and all the liquor you could drink down the table, sitting right on the table, right in this hotel. We really bought a lot with our 10 cents, didn't we? $1.20 a year was our dues. The telephone company thought so much of it that they furnished all of the swimming, steak dinners, all the liquor you could drink, and all of the things that went with it. Immediately after the old association was thrown out by the Supreme Court of the United States, we started to organize in the communication workers what we thought was a real labor movement. And I happened to have an opportunity to Charlotte in Laurel, Mississippi, the first local communication workers of America in the state of Mississippi. We couldn't find in the city of Laurel or anywhere around a place where we could go meet. We couldn't, in the Pinehurst Hotel or none of the places that were open for public meetings would even talk to us about a place that a labor organization might sit down and discuss some of their problems, much less organizing a local. And we organized that local out in the city park in August of 1936 with 10 ice cold watermelons and a few people that had guts enough to sign the application for a charter. Ever since then, I've been connected with the labor movement in Mississippi. Right down the street here, the old CIO opened the first office in the CIO in the state of Mississippi. And I happened to have an opportunity to become a member of the executive board of that organization under the leadership of James Shelby, who was then the chairman of the Communication Workers of America in the state of Mississippi. And the legislative report, James kindly did the job then that Claude is doing now on the Hill in legislative work. But the report that came out from the legislature that was sent out by Shelby at that time was confidential information. It came out to the various leaders. There was an envelope stamped confidential information. No one else to open. I worked with Bob Tom in trying to find meeting places. We came into Meridian and tried to find a meeting place in Meridian. Chamber of Commerce said no. The hotels said no. The various places that would hold public meetings would say no. The very fact that we can come into the Heidelberg Hotel or hotels on the coast and have meetings now shows the advancement that has been made. I had the opportunity in this organization to serve on the screening committees for the state offices of our that occupy the capital. And this experience has been a great experience for me. And I just wanted to let you people know that even though I'm not running for re-election, I'm not eligible for re-election, that my telephone number is available. I'm available at any time to organizing work or to help out any way that I possibly can in the state of Mississippi and in the labor movement. And it has certainly been a pleasure for me to serve on this board. And I just want everybody to know that I love all of you, and just want you to know that through my experience, it's been greatly worthwhile for me to have worked with such fine people as you. Thank you.
Well, that was, let me say in behalf of the board, it's been a real pleasure to have had the opportunity to have had served with you And we, of course, will look forward to seeing you much in the future. And, of course, anytime we're in the Tupelo area, we intend to make sure we call you.
Thank you.
I'd also like to say it's been a pleasure and a great experience for me to serve this 4 years as a member of the board. And I hope I've been of some assistance. And like Brother Edwards, I'm retiring in June, and I've already bought a travel trailer for 3 years ago in anticipation of that. And I've been practicing and trying it out. But I'll be gone a good bit, but anytime I'm back, I'll always be glad to assist in the labor movement anyway, because I think that is ultimately is what's it's gonna take to bring Mississippi off of the bottom of the ladder on every step that we've got now. And say it's been a pleasure working with you and serving with you, and I'll be ready to assist you anytime that I need.
We're going to be calling on you. All right, is there anything else?
Well, I'd just like to say I've enjoyed working on the board for 4 years, and if there's anything I can do down, I will be glad to, but I just got quite a bit tied up right now, and I just don't see how I can.
Well, we enjoyed having you.
However, the amalgamated caucus may insist that we serve. We have a caucus yet. They may.
Well, I mean, I'll be glad to do what I can, but I
Right.
thought there might be someone else that could give more time to it than I could.
Okay, well, we enjoyed having you with us too. You let us give our hand. Now, is there anything else? If not, we will stand adjourned until in the morning.
I can use one or two of you good brothers to help us move those stuff from one place to the other out there for a few minutes, if you will. Won't take us but a few minutes.
Hey, how you do?
Hey, more than you might think.
Hey, buddy.
How you doing? All right, all right.
Well, listen, I got that, I didn't.
I don't
No,
know.
well, I give two, cause I ain't got one I'll give tomorrow.
Yeah?
To 8 o'clock.
Pile it up on that cow.
First, as I've mentioned already, we want to get the names and address, telephone numbers, also social security numbers of the new elected board members. Now, we got that information on everybody else, so you don't bother with it. We got Mister, we got Kelly, we got Joe Davis, we got Brother Tucker, and Brother Fly, right?
I
All right.
need Mr. Fly's address, I know.
Huh?
I know I need Mr. Fly's.
Yeah, that you need here. Anyhow, you don't have to give us that right now. You leave that with the secretary. When we adjourn, make sure she's got it.
somewhere.
All right, we'll pass the pad around in here. All right. Now, this, of course, is usually routine, but it's always done at each board meeting after a convention, and that's to assign the duties of the full-time officers. And I might briefly outline to you how it's been handled up to this point. And if you want to continue that way, then just say so, that's all. I've been handling the legislative end of the thing. Tom's been handling the COPE end of the thing. And then the rest of it, we've been splitting it up to the best of our ability. You know, with two full-time guys, we're liable to have to sit in for one another sometime or something like that. And there's no way that you can define, actually, the duties of either one of us. But he is the Coke director, has been the Coke director, he's subsidized as the Coke director, therefore, the board should name him officially, show up in the minutes that he is the Coke director, right? All right. Then, officially, you should designate me as part of my duties as your legislative representative in charge of legislative affairs. And of course, the Constitution is clear from that point on about the duties of the two officers. So that's the first thing we ought to decide. If you want us to continue as we have in the past, we'll just have a motion to that effect and get right on with the business.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay? Second? Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. All right, the next thing we need to do is to designate someone as a WAD director. Now, the organization in the past has not had sufficient funds to hire a full-time woman, which we need, but we have from time to time put on the staff, part-time, Amy Hollowell. We started off with the young CWA girl up in Tupelo, and it didn't work out so well. We wound up asking Amy to work with us. She came down and spent considerable time in a particular situation with us. They have done a good job in that area where Amy has, politically speaking, and she knows the operation and so forth. And I can't think of a better person around than to suggest for that position. And it must be understood it won't be a full-time position. It's strictly be on a temporary basis when and if we can find the money enough to put her on the payroll and send her out to help do a job. Now, if you got other folks in mind, and you feel privileged to nominate them, but the phone now is open for that position of WAD director. You have any other nominations? If not, all in favor of Amy, hold up your hand. We'll do this real quick like. All right, you done missed the first vote, you see. But he held up his hand, he didn't even know what it was all about. But I'll explain that to him later. All right, Amy Hollowell then is the WAD director, and if you'd like, you can invite her in and advise her. She can come in and sit in on the rest of this meeting if you'd like to.
For me right at the moment.
Did you?
Look to see if she's back.
I got a couple people waiting out there. I'll
Be back in a minute, strong.
All right. Now, one of the things that you'll have to do, of course, is to set the salaries of the full-time officers. And when you get ready to take that up, me and Tom, I think, need to leave the room and let y'all make this decision with us absent. But there's a couple of things that I want to get some action on from you first before we leave. We've got a couple of problems that we have to deal with, and I guess you're just going to have to kind of leave it up to us. Ladies and gentlemen, meet our new WAD director, in case you hadn't met her. She will be invited to all of our board meetings, of course, just like everybody else. We're going to leave the salary thing for last. I've been advised by the secretaries that they want to meet with us tomorrow to negotiate a working agreement. And if any of you guys would like to sit in on that session, I'd be glad to. I'd be most appreciative if you'd sit in there and help me a little bit. They're pretty tough to negotiate with.
One thing to do, that's surrender.
Surrender. Just give them the damn place, huh? You don't want it.
Not
Let's
tomorrow.
trade places. I'll meet with the chapter
Is
tomorrow.
there anybody present who would like to participate in this event?
No, sir, I just live through one of
Tomorrow'll be a good day, Mr.
All right.
Chairman, and a weakened condition, but we are too.
Mr. Chairman, I move the President and the Secretary Treasurer handle negotiations with the office workers in regard to office staff.
All right. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, so ordered. Well, you don't mind loading us down, do you?
You gotta earn your money.
Now, I want to introduce Brother Dees to you. Brother Dees just walked in. I think most of you know him. Stand up there, Strawford. Let them all see. I tried to introduce him once or twice during the convention. He's out doing errands, and a lot of people missed him. But you will be seeing a lot of this guy. He's the man that we just took on board as the coordinator of the Appalachian Council thing that we just got involved in, and we hope within a couple of weeks to be able to come back and advise you about some programs we hope to help you get underway. We don't know how much money is available. He is a full-time coordinator, and he will be probably visiting with some of you in your areas from time to time, so I wanted you to know who he is. Now, we've got to set a meeting sometime in the near future, and I see Brother Tucker sitting here, and I guess he's about the best source of information, and Brother Taylor. What is the status right now of the State Building Trades organization? Does it exist? Is it functioning now or not?
Not in the Meridian area.
I'm talking about on a state level.
No.
Who is the chairman now that John Erickson's left?
Probably just went with phone.
To do anything at all?
Is that about right?
I don't think they even meet. I hadn't had any correspondence from them or anything. We were affiliated from our area.
As far as you know, the Building Trades State Organization is not a fund.
That's right.
Well, we need to call a meeting of the Building Trades as soon as I get back from Washington, as soon as Brother Dees learns a little more about his job, as soon as we find out how much money we got and so forth, we need to get a meeting, especially of the Building Trades. Now, I know we got some problems from other groups around that would like to have some training programs, but the one that we're concerned about immediately is that one involving Building Trades. And I think we might be able to breathe some new life into the Building Trades with this program. So if the board would give me the authority, I'd like to call a meeting, a statewide meeting of the Building Trades sometime after the legislature adjourns. Not in the immediate future, but sometime within the next couple of months, we'll say, of all Building Trades, and see what we can do. Now, they might want to reorganize a state organization, but at least we want them to know what programs are available through this Appalachian Council thing that we're getting involved in. I'd like to get a motion, or at least some idea from you about this meeting. Now, of course, we're going to have other people that's going to want us to be working with them on training programs. If you want them at that meeting, that's all right too. But there is a need to get the Building Trades groups together and explain this program to them, because Brother Tucker himself had got some bad information, false information, by the rumor circuit. And it's of great importance, I think, that they all understand what this is all about, don't you?
I sure do.
What's your views on having a meeting on a statewide basis?
Well, don't you think it would be appropriate if we had Bob Shattuck from the National Building Trades to come in here with a meeting of this type? I think it would be.
He's the regional director.
Right, and we will be seeing him Monday of this week.
Well, now, if you want to, it'd be perfectly all right with me if you'd get Brother Shattuck to call a meeting. Might be more effective.
Chairman?
Yes.
Holiday Inn, I think, isn't that right?
In Meridian?
No, Columbus, Mississippi.
You Shattuck?
Yeah, we got problems up there that he's coming in on.
Oh, I thought maybe you'd have it some kind of regional.
Will you be seeing him?
Yes, sir.
When?
Monday.
All right, you talk it over with him. Tell him what we'd like to do. And I just leave it up to you.
To get back with you.
And get back with me.
Okay.
And then we'll try to get together on a mutual satisfactory date. Now, I know we've got a lot of interest in other programs. Some of you, I know, are interested. And of course, we got the outreach thing in Pascagoula and the HRDI thing also down there, which we can use and some areas to help some other groups. And don't think we're trying to slight anybody, but the immediate problem right now is trying to get this thing moving as far as the building trade group's concerned. Frankly, I'm very fearful if we don't get something going pretty soon, the building trades are gonna wake up here one of these days and the rats are gonna have taken over the whole outfit. Okay, so you'll get a hold of, what's his name, Shattuck?
Bob Shattuck.
And y'all will then in turn contact us and we'll get together on a mutual satisfactory date
We
and
need to
time
communicate
for
with
that
him.
meeting.
We don't have him on a mailing list.
We don't have his name and address.
I don't have it with me, I can get it from
Is he,
him.
whose place did he
He's never-
take?
He's been there for years, hasn't he?
He's a regional director?
We've never had
In
him.
Atlanta, he's been, a number of years now.
He come in and set up the charter when we chartered the state organization.
All right, we'll leave it up to Brother Tucker then, and Brother Taylor, y'all both probably be seeing him same time. Y'all sit down with him, tell him what we got in mind, tell him we like to have a meeting of state, you know, of all building trades. And then get back in touch with us and let's set a mutually satisfactory date.
The Building Trades Directory, the local Building Trades Council ought to have one, will have his address in it.
Okay.
Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to say one other thing while we're on this. I'd like for all the members of the board to know that we're not even here to organize or train craft or any work for what can go out and be non-union. We're in here to help and assist the local union. We have a little finance money that will train pre-apprentices or little pre-training before we go on the job. And before we contact any employer or contractor, we will contact the labor union that is representing that group.
Well, that's the reason we're gonna call the meeting.
That's right.
That's the purpose of the meeting,
What I
to get
told
this
this,
information out.
These, board members know if that was it, so they could carry it back home.
Yeah.
And stop any bad rumors that was going out.
Right, okay, that's what the meeting will be about. All right, there's several other things down here that we can spend some time on, but because of the fact that you've got to be out of here by 5:30 to pay another night's rent, I'm gonna let some of these other things go and we can handle them with a meeting of the executive committee, such as trying to set up a date and a time for the 4th District caucus. We can handle that without taking this up with the full board. Bob, we'll be in touch with you on the phone and some other people. Then we got to spend some time thinking about the possibility of a senatorial race. We don't have to do that now. The only thing that I think that needs to be done now, before you leave, is this matter of setting the salaries of the full-time officers. You've done told me, and Tom to negotiate with the secretary, so we're gonna leave the room now and let y'all negotiate with Mr. Smith for us. Okay? You'll be sitting out there, we all get through, let us know.
Does this wage freeze, is it in?
That's it, Bob. I'm
Today, but I missed this, they got,
I wish I had enough copies for the board, then I had time.
Did you make copies of this?
No, I didn't.
I think the last time that these officers had a raise was what, 2 years ago or 4 years? 2 years ago. And they, at that time, were raised to $13,250 for the president and $12,500 for the secretary treasurer. And I put together, from our records in my office, the salaries paid to the other state officers in the southeastern area.
I'd just like to go over it.
Mhm.
Go over it for them,
Yeah.
so they don't feel.
In Alabama, for example, which has a 16-cent per capita tax, the president gets 15.5, and they have a vice president at 14 and a secretary treasurer at 14. Arkansas, the president, Arkansas has a 23-cent per capita tax, and they get, the president gets 14,580, and the secretary treasurer gets 14,580. Florida, with an 18-cent per capita tax, the president gets 19,460, and the secretary treasurer 16,960, and the first vice president gets 16,960. They have 3 full-time officers. Of course, there's something larger than you. They have 92,000 members. Georgia has a 12-cent per capita tax, and the president gets 13,780, and the secretary gets 13,780. Kentucky, they have 1 full-time officer. He gets $20,050, executive secretary treasurer. They have 2 staff people at 13,500, Coke director and research and education director. Louisiana, president 19,200 and executive vice president 18,000. They have a 40-cent per capita tax, double yours. The highest of the many. The only others are 30 cents. The next highest is 30 cents. And then Mississippi, 13,250 and 12,500. North Carolina, with a per capita tax of 22.5 cents. The president gets 17,420, and the secretary treasurer 16,952. They have a research and education director who gets more than your president, 13,500.
Good enough, buddy?
Mm-hmm. Beg pardon?
I must, you know, I must know if these people all handling the state organization like ours, right? Well, I don't know if we got enough money to pay the man for it. You know, we can go over all these names if you want to, but really.
Well, I just thought it would be interesting for you to see how, you know, how it stacks up.
Yeah.
You want the rest of these, and then we can throw it over for discussion? Would you rather not have me read these? What's your pleasure?
I don't know, I was thinking about that time.
Yeah.
I don't have to check out, I don't check
I think
out.
we're aware
Yeah.
Bill Smith is probably lower than most in surrounding states.
Virginia, I think, is the only one that has a lower for the president than you have. And Claude's, Tom's the lowest of the secretary treasurers in this whole region.
What is Tennessee's per capita stamp?
Tennessee just raised theirs to 23 cents. You've got the problem of the wage freeze.
That's what I was fixing to ask the question with.
And if you go beyond 5.5,
What about me?
you
Can't you get me?
you probably have to go to the IRS, you know, for an exception. I think you could probably get an exception on an equity basis when you compare it with these other salaries.
Mr. Smith, I'm not on the board, but I have been before, and I can't keep my mouth shut. If I get out of line, you tell me. But I don't believe any of these states have got 2 men working harder and spend more time than the 2 men we have here in the state.
Well, there's some that don't work as hard.
Let me ask you this question. You talk about inequities, what is the most inequities you've known in prison?
I don't know, I haven't been handling any of those, but I talked with Frank Polera in our research department, who is working on this, worked with Nat Goldfinger on this whole wage board thing, and he thought that an inequity was your best basis for asking for something more than 5.5, because they haven't had anything for 2 years, and then when you compare it with the others, you get a distorted picture. Frankly, I don't know how you've held on to these 2 guys as long as you have, except for their love of the labor movement of Mississippi. I know that Claude could have had a job several years ago, would have paid him substantially more than them, but he turned it down because he wanted this kind of work. This is where he feels he can make a real contribution. So, I just put that information before you for your benefit.
One question. question, certainly in my mind, as a person who served on this board for a number of years, is the national AFL-CIO gonna be able to continue subsidizing us to the degree that they are now? So we couldn't even pay them their present salaries if this were not so. Some of our board members may not be aware of this.
I see no reason why it should not continue. I will certainly recommend it, and up to this point, I've never been turned down on a
Right,
recommendation.
that's correct.
I don't have the authority to say yes. I am confident that it will be continued.
Okay,
Might
you
even
know
try
the-
to get a little more, I don't know.
You know the financial status, I guess, of the organization, how much can we afford to raise?
I don't have the financial report in front of me. You have it, Carolyn?
Well, I won't really know till after this convention.
Yeah. Of course, you've
We're
substantially
so
increased your membership, you know,
has
so
increased so
you know,
much, so.
seems to me
we're
the last
as well.
report I looked at, there was something like $3,500 balance or something of that kind.
Oh, no, we're around 10,000.
Oh, you are?
But I don't know how much will be left after convention.
Claude said we were
Well, that's
financially
what
embarrassed
shows-
about a van.
That goes to show what happens when you rely on your memory.
5.5 to 730. Could we chisel another 20 and get by without having to go to IRS? No.
The IRS might tell you, well, you don't need to, I don't know. Their
Well, my
rules and
business agent
regulations
said I
are
didn't-
not
didn't
that,
have to.
their rules and regulations
My
are,
business agent said it didn't have to.
they're not that clearly established in their
No.
rules and regulations.
OPI
They're in a
just-
state of, don't know.
Well, we in negotiation with our field staff right now, the road work. We all over the line, I mean, that's a different problem.
I wouldn't worry about IRS. I'd fix the amount you think is right, authorize the 5.5 immediately, and whatever else IRS will approve to be retroactive to this point. If they don't approve it, then they can't get it, that's all.
How much has the cost of living gone up in the last 2 years? Anybody have those statistics?
Well,
No, I don't know.
I tell you what, I'll make a motion then, that we raise their salary 10%. See, that's enough.
I'd like to make an amendment, raise the president's salary to 16,000.
You're talking about dollar figure, not
Dollar,
percent.
yeah.
16,000 even,
Yeah.
and what about
What
Secretary
about
Treasurer?
Secretary?
What is his name?
He's 12.5 now.
He's 12,500, so now he's, about 1,000, make his 15.
It's about $1,000 different now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost
It's about
1,000.
the same spread.
No, it's 750.
$750. But proportionately, it would work out at about 1,000
Yeah.
at this level.
Yeah.
Is there a second to the amendment?
I'm gonna second it. I don't know what this does to IRS or finance. I'm not gonna second it.
I don't know, we'll try.
Maybe,
Frank, I
maybe,
think-
maybe Claude can scrounge a little more out of us, I don't know.
I make as much money as they make or more. And those people, they put some hours in.
One of them does just about as much as the other.
Now, I'm accepting this amendment and the motion itself with the understanding that the 5.5 will be put in immediately and the balance of it, if and when approved by IRS, retroactive to this point.
Let me.
Is that right? Is that your intention?
Yeah,
That's my motion.
what we need to do, let's look at this thing again, because both of them, I think, it's pretty well divided up to duty, so this $1,000 between the salary might be it might not be right, it might ought to pay them both the same thing, or close to it.
Most of the states have a differential between their principal
Yeah,
officer.
I believe there's always has been a difference.
And this was set up in the
Yeah.
last board meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Not explaining.
There's always been a difference.
These are certainly not out of line.
Stanton, I believe,
No.
because of the number of people or dollar volume involved here, all we would have to do is keep record, subject to scrutiny.
So
what I
Unless
was
the pay
told.
board has changed in the
That's
last
what I was told.
30 days.
Well, their rules and regulations are so.
Depends on what day you ask the question.
One day how to feel, that's right.
Right.
All you have to do is go down to IRS and ask, do we have to have approval on this, and they'll tell you, you know?
Right.
And they may say, no, you don't have to under these circumstances. To do, then you'd have to put in, for approval.
Could you ask without telling them who you were?
I know him.
Can't say
I'd be
that.
glad to talk to that. Would the board like for me to
Any
confer
other?
with Cameron on this?
Who's Cameron?
He's director.
IRS?
Yeah.
No,
You know him personally?
no reason not to. That way we know.
I think he's a little embarrassed now that they can't put a monitoring service in effect. They don't have anything to tell us what a violation will be.
Yeah. It's a mess, real mess. Any other discussion?
Did I get the figures right? 16 and 5 and 15?
16 and 15.
Right, that's what it is.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment will say aye. Oh, you want to say something?
Yes, sir. Sure does.
Well, I mean, you know, this, how much you don't, go ahead and say it, I mean.
Yeah, I just, in my opinion, I don't think there's any way you can compare, I mean, one was more than the other. You know, looking at it that way, but I can't see $1,000 difference in the two of them. I think the secretary treasurer ought to at least be 15 and 5.
That's what we said.
That's what we said.
15,000 him and 16,000 the other one.
She said
I said
15.5.
Oh, I beg your pardon, I'm sorry.
That suits me. I got no objection, if there's a second to motion.
Well, I just don't have any objection. I don't know where we get the money.
Yes. This is a big jump when I can, if you closing it a little bit, it'd be
I don't think they'd be expecting it.
in the other.
I'm going to be exploded, aren't they?
They may never get it, who knows? You want to offer that as
Is there some
a?
doubt in your mind that we get this?
I really don't know. I haven't dealt with the pay board.
I don't mean from the paperwork, I'm not sure.
Oh, well, I don't think that we're gonna up ours this much, no. I don't know that I can get it up at all, but I can try.
That's what
But I think you've got more income now than you had, you know, your membership is.
I got that watch expensive.
I'm gonna get some in the past to do with that.
And if you get into financial trouble, God knows where it comes. I think I'd do the right thing and let's work that other problem.
We'll get some money somewhere.
You wanna offer your 15.5 to the amendment? In discussion? Question is on substituting 15.5 or 1,500, 15,000 on the secretary treasurer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Now the question is on substituting 16,000 for the president and 15.5 in lieu of the 10%. All in favor of making that substitution say aye. Opposed, no. It's carried. Now, the question is on adopting the motion to raise their salary to these figures. 16 for the president and 15.5 for the secretary treasurer. Any further discussion? Not all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's carried unanimously. Okay, tell them to come back in.
Come in.
Oh, good on you.
Hadn't got long.
30-something%.
Say you get it by the board, you haven't got long.
I think you might.
Put that on condition that we break off.
Well, gentlemen.
I could have jobbed it, you just.
Well, I tell you, we looked over the financial situation,
I'm sure you did.
and we
We
decided.
found it, we approached you with a bus.
And we decided that we'd give you each $1,000 cut.
That's not too unexpected.
Now, they
Put you on
voted,
food stamps.
Claude, they voted to increase the president to 16,000 with 5.5% of it effective immediately, and the balance retroactive to immediate if approved by the pay board. assuming that approval is necessary. We'll have to find out.
How do we find out?
And they voted to raise the secretary treasurer to 15.5. On the same way, 5.5% effective immediately, and the balance effective retroactively if and when approved by the pay board, assuming that you have to have approval. You'll have to ask the local IRS office. They're the only ones that know what their regulations are. I doubt if they know.
Let me, I assume then that the same situation will apply when we sit down with our secretaries tomorrow. Anything that we negotiate with them will be subject to the approval of IRS or the 5.5.
If it goes beyond 5.5, I think it may have to be
Our
at least
business
clear.
agent doesn't advise us that, we'll talk about that.
Well,
Don't worry about that.
let me say, gentlemen and ladies, I appreciate very much your generosity. I know that you really went overboard on this one, trying to get the salaries up as much as you have, because I know you looked at the financial situation, and in order for this to be done, Brother Smith, I just have to remind you that $400 that you've been sending down here every month will have to continue, and we'll have to keep getting that 5,000 tons. That's how simple it is.
We reminded them of the same thing.
You have? All right. But I want you to know that personally I appreciate what you've just done. I think you went as far or further than you could possibly have gone, the way I personally feel about it. You got a word you'd like to say, Brother?
Yeah,
Knight?
well, I'd like to say certainly that I appreciate the consideration, and I realize that this is not easy for you to do, because we have to have the money. It's got to come in before you can spend it, before it's available for this or anything else. And certainly, we're going to continue to try to add all the membership to the organization we can. If we don't, then we might as well just all quit and go home. I do appreciate, I think in saying that, I'm saying this, that the demands on this organization are greater than they've ever been. And if we're gonna continue, if we're gonna have the organization, we gotta find some way to keep it moving and expanding. Otherwise, if it's just gonna stand still, then we're not doing any good. Thank you very much.
All right.
Next time I come down, I expect to see you looking better fed.
All right, you've got about 17 minutes, and I want to take about a half of it before you have to get down there and check out. The policy has always been that if a newly elected board member had to stay over and incur extra expense, we took care of it. Otherwise, whoever sent you here takes care of it. Now, I don't believe there's anybody that will incur any extra expense on this trip, is he? Is he? All right, since you don't have to spend another night. But those of you that came here know what your situation is from the board. Now, this is one thing I want you to be thinking about. You heard the discussion, you know what the problem is in the Constitution. I'm expected to set up a committee to review this Constitution, and I'd like for each one of you to be studying it. And as soon as we can find the time, we'll set up that committee, and we'll get the collective thinking of the committee. Then we'll call a meeting of the full board. The chances are, might add, there's a good possibility. Now, we know we got 3 congressional races. We know that. But I met with a gentleman yesterday who I introduced just before I left, who addressed our convention 2 years ago by the name of Taylor Webb, who is thinking seriously of running against Jim Eastman for the Senate. And the whole thing hinges around whether or not he can find enough seed money. Now, in my opinion, Taylor Webb, with enough money, can defeat Jim Eastman. Now, I know that you've been pigeonholed by a member of the legislature out here who was just recently elected to the legislature from Jackson County, who has announced for the Senate. And I know that he's been telling you that I've been ignoring him and all this kind of malarkey. Well, in a way I have, because I don't think that the guy should have ever announced in the first place. If he expected our support, the first thing he should have done is come talk to us before he announced about running. This is what Taylor Webb's done, don't you understand? I don't feel any obligation to Louis Ponder and Russell Kelly at all. And I think he's made a mistake by announcing for the Senate after having just been elected to the state legislature and having served now just a little over 2 months. Now, we will give him the same consideration if we have to set up an interview committee as everybody else, you know, but no more. Now, does any of you have anything that you want to say before we adjourn and you have to go check out? All right.
I guess I'll put this in the form of a motion or whatever. I hope it won't sound like a threat,
Yes.
but I'm gonna aim it at you and Tom Knight.
All right.
You
We're used to it.
In the convention today, there was a motion, I believe, made that the girls take some time off.
No,
Yeah.
it was both,
Pardon?
officers and staff.
Was that both?
I thought so.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm putting this in the form that I insist that the two of you take some time off.
Let me,
Well-
add a little information on this. How do you get your vacation?
He don't take
He
it.
does.
I ain't asked that. I mean, how is it set up for vacation?
Oh, well, we got under this setup that we got, both of us now eligible for 3 weeks. But under the,
4.
huh?
Y'all supposed to get the same as us.
Oh, we up to 4
We're
now?
up to 4.
See, I'm out. Well,
You don't
They never take it, that's the trouble.
the problem is finding the time to take it. Now, I've had a problem, of course, as many of you know. I'm under medication right now. 99% of it centers around too much work. I realize that I've got to slow down. But in this whole thing, in the absence of enough staff people, if we're going to do the job and continue the progress, it's pretty hard to take off when you'd like to. You understand what I'm getting at? Now, hopefully, with these on board and with the other 2 programs we've mentioned, and I think that with some of the new blood on this board, that we're going to see some organizations affiliate with us here in the near future that's been riding free and that build up the treasure and make this thing a little bit easier. We will do our best to try to take some time off, but I can't sit here today and tell you that tomorrow I'm going to take off 3 days. Even if you instruct me now, I might have to violate those instructions because the legislature's in session, and I learned today that the Senate Insurance Committee is seriously considering cutting back on the amount that was passed the House instead of adding on to it on workman's compensation. And it's too important right now, you see, for me to take off 3 days until I see that thing pass through that legislature. Now, when that happens, when the legislature adjourns, I promise you one thing, I will take some time off.
Sure. I've already given orders to your wife.
Yes.
You understand?
Yeah.
I know who the
I
boss
use-
is.
use up
I
to
know who
something.
the boss in your house
Right.
is. When the legislature adjourns, you and she are to take 2 weeks down on the coast, okay?
All right. All right. Y'all got to get out of here by 5:30.
All right. Chairman, I got one thing I want to say.
Oh.
Other night, coming back from Louisville, from the CMU meeting, Brother Knight, he was talking about you, him, they were taking a vacation. And I suggested, right after the legislature adjourned, that y'all take off a week. I would stay there and answer the phone, make excuses. If I can't tell them anything else, you made enough out of the legislative conference. Go to the Bahamas.
Don't worry, friend, we'll be calling on you. You got more than you know right now.
We'll see, you got
Right. Good luck to all of you now. We'll be looking.